Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thermaltake Sprint Series. I believe this is the third week, and we are at the Nurburgring GP. I am Austin. I am one of your commentators tonight, and joining me in the booth is Zach. How are we, mate?
Good to be here. Definitely keen for this round this week.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Nurburgring always puts on a good show, and of course, as always, we have on the camera Benjamin Hignett, the man with all the moves and the special angles for us. So yeah, really looking forward to this round. I believe we're just getting into the start of qualifying now. Yep, so we've got a 10-minute qualifying. We'll see what kind of lap times these guys can put down. Looking at the track temp, it is a bit warm, so I don't think we're going to see any blistering paces, but give us a rough number. What do you think you'll see for pole today?
I reckon we'll be looking at the low 44s or a high 43 from one of these front runners.
40s or 50s?
50s, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the number. Yeah, I think we should still see a low 54 from a couple of these quick guys. I'm going to say a 54.3 with these temps, but we'll see how we go. Maybe someone will pull out an absolute blinding lap. Is here on board with Jaden Rondinella in that skill issue racing McLaren, followed very closely by another McLaren. Hopefully they don't get in the way. So we'll have to watch as he comes through the last corner now down the front straight. Great track, this one. It's great to drive. It's really tricky though. You got the fast Schumacher S's, and then particularly the chicane at the last sector is really tricky to nail every single lap.
As we see Lele put down the starter lap with a 54.1 off the bat.
Right, we were wrong. It looks like this is going to get into the 53s if they've pulled that straight out of the bag. That is a great lap from Lele. With Vintner 8 tenths behind, as there we go, Vetter in the Ford 2 tenths behind. So we'll see how these guys go. Is here with Brad Cook and his Smokestack Racing Honda. Great livery, that one.
Oh, it's an absolutely astounding livery. Definitely worth it for the Honda, especially around the old Formula 1 track we're on.
How does the Honda fare around here? Does anybody know? Because I swear there's only about 3 people that drive this car, so I feel like I have no idea if it's good or bad here.
I just think it just handles like death everywhere it goes. If you can handle it, then you're just next level. As simple as that.
Yeah, that's probably a good bet. So we'll see what kind of time he puts in here, if this is a valid lap. Obviously, ACC's timing at the moment is a bit strange as he goes 54 flat, so puts it on pole. So yes, I think the Honda is quick. That is a good lap from Brad Cook there.
That's absolutely astonishing because we have Vintner here up 5 tenths coming out of the Schumacher S's. Could set him up for a couple spots.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there's much track evolution or time gained as drivers sort of get used to these conditions, because I'm sure even for these first flying laps, I'm sure there is more time in it, as we see there. And we're on board with Lele, who looks 2 tenths up coming out of the last corner, seems to get a good drive. So that'll put him back into pole and into the 53s we go with a 53.962, looking very strong. Not too far ahead of everyone else at the moment, but that's a very good lap. As we're back on board now with Brad, who's about a 10th up, so I think he's going to be within range. We'll see how much time he's got left to gain. Here we have, we've jumped on board with Lewis, who's a couple of tenths up. Yeah, it looks like the drivers are gaining everywhere at the moment, so we'll see where this ends up at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The call for the low 50 or the high 53s was definitely on with times like this. I'm definitely curious to see if Cook can clap back.
I'm sure he'll be able to, and also another name I haven't seen, is he racing tonight, is Jamie Conboy, because he's obviously very quick himself, and I believe he's in this split. So got to keep an eye out for him. I'm sure there's plenty of other people here that could put in a real quick lap time, as here we're watching Lewis get nearly 4 tenths up, but just losing a little bit on exit, so 3.5 tenths. That's still really good, puts him up to P6 as a pro-am. That is an excellent effort, as here we are with Jamie Conboy, who seems to be struggling just a little bit off the pace at the moment, so maybe he's being caught up with traffic a little bit and all these little things. We'll see what he can do. If the delta is right, he is currently 7 tenths up, so he's clearly making some time.
Yes, I was going to say the Ford is probably a little bit more of a boat around here. Just I would assume that it's awkward gearing, probably not quite handling it perfectly. But if there's anyone I know who could get that thing around here quick, it's JC. The Loop D here, 3/10, nearly 4/10 up on the final corner. Get in at least a spot. And it does, P4.
Yeah, that was a good lap. Lost a little bit on exit there, but we'll see if he's got much else in. And we're back on board with JC, who is now 8/10 up on his previous time, avoiding the car that's gone off to the left there. Well done for not rejoining. Tries to focus on the exit. Ooh, doesn't quite get the exit, so he loses a 10th there. So he's still 6.5 tenths up. We'll see where this puts him. Oh, that was an invalid lap. So that was correct there. So he's clearly got some pace in him, so he just needs to get one lap in. As now we're back on board with Brad Cook, who's nearly 3/10 up, which will definitely put him into the 53s and up into pole if he nails this lap. As we come through this left-hander, we pull it quickly back left to try and get this long right-hander. Bit of a late apex, as we can see. Yeah, look at that Honda having to catch that all the way through. But the time is looking good. He is 4/10 up, nearly 5, as we come up into the trickiest part of the track, in my opinion, which is this final chicane. We'll see how he handles it, see what his previous times was like. Brakes are late, goes real deep. Doesn't quite get the exit as he was so quick into the entry, but he's still 3/10 up. It's still looking like he can get pole. See what his exit like is coming out of this final corner. It's not brilliant, but it will be enough. This will put him into the 53s with a .795 and gets him on pole. So that's a great lap from Brad Cook. We'll see if there's any responses here. As we can see, Johnson clearly has some time in him, but I don't believe he is on a valid lap. At least the ACC Delta's a bit funky at the moment, so we'll see where that gets him. But yeah, there's certainly a couple of real quick times coming out, Zach.
Oh, absolutely. That's a 53... Well, 53.8 is an astounding time to bring out for this, especially in the, what was it, 26 degrees, 29?
Yeah.
That's a very quick time. As we see the Vintner coming in with a second up on his time, he could come up for a scratch at pole here.
Yeah, that is an absolutely massive improvement by Vintner. Clearly just hasn't been able to put a good lap in, but now he's warmed up. Didn't quite get the second improvement, but that launches him up to P3. That is a great lap from Vintner. I knew there might have been a couple of extra names. As here we're on board again with Johnson in that Castrol McLaren. 3/10 up at the moment, and yeah, that puts him into P2, only .07 behind Brad Cook, so that is real close. He'll have enough time for one more lap, see if he's got it in him. And here we are back on board with Lele, who's looking for .16 of an improvement, so he's right on the money there at the moment, and he's just coming out of the Mercedes arena in Sector 1. So we'll see if he can make this improvement over the rest of the lap and try and get that pole back.
Absolutely. Looks like the Mercedes arena has caught another one with that awkward turn 4. He's lost a little bit of time, but he gained it through the Ford curve. He'll sit about a 10th.
It's always tricky as a driver when you're trying to push for this little bit of extra time, because you push into the corner to try and gain time and you always lose it on exit, so you feel like you have to try and pull yourself back at the most difficult time. So we see if we can keep it up. He's still positive, but he hasn't quite got that 10th that he will need. But his lap is still looking very good. He will be in the 53s on this pace, just needs a little bit more time. We'll see if he's got anything left. Maybe he didn't have a great chicane, or maybe the exit on to the final straight wasn't great. We'll see what he's got left in the tank. As here he comes down to the back straight now. He has lost a bit of time, so his exit wasn't great there, so he's going to have to push through the chicane really, really hard. We'll see if he can keep it on track, see if he can keep it within track limits. He does well. That was a great run through the chicane. Can he keep it going through this final corner? He's now 2/10 up, pushing really hard into the braking zone. He's going to lose it on exit, and yeah, that is unfortunate. I bet he would have been seeing purples. So that is a bit upsetting, but you cannot complain with a P3 by Ashan Lely. That is a great performance regardless.
Oh, absolutely. As we see Miller coming through, I believe that's the Kumo curve. 3/10 up. He's getting more time on his final run. Dips it in the sand. He's losing time as he comes down the straight. But if he keeps his nose clean, he might get himself up a little more.
Yeah, great lap so far from Jay Miller. And also, I did realise that Eshan Lele did cross with a few seconds left, so theoretically he has one more chance, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. As we're watching Jack Miller gain a bit of time to this last corner, but still just doesn't get the run out on the exit, so he's a 10th up, so it might be looking like almost a position.
Ooh.
So yeah, he gets P10 for now, so not bad. Top 10 is always a great spot to be. And here we are on board with the Mustang of Vediga, the great Coca-Cola livery, who's also 3/10 up. Let's see how he gets through this final chicane, can make or break the run. Yeah, very nice. Matched his time. See how he goes through the final corner as he gains a lot on exit, up to 5/10. Loses it just a little bit, but that's still an excellent lap. Puts him up to P4, 2/10 off Brad Cook. So well done from Vediga. And here we are back on board with Lele, who is still gaining time and on a valid lap, so we'll have to see if he can finally nail and get back into that pole position. Needs 1.16 of a second.
It all comes down to the chicane and the final hairpin. And she's coming up.
Yeah, looks a bit better than last lap. Yep. Well done. Didn't push it. Oh.
Not quite. As we see. Just misses out by 0.08 as Brad Cook set the fastest lap. Oh, we've got JC. What's happened here?
Bit of a replay from JC's qualifying. This is coming up into the chicane, I believe, as he hits the inside curve. Yeah. That's what happens when you push it. Yes, you can. It's always a bit unlucky when you hit those curbs just a bit too much. It'll just spit you out sideways. I'm sure he held onto it, but it's not good for the lap time. So there we go. End of qualifying. We have Brad Cook in pole, followed by Eshan Lele, and then Luke Johnson as your top three. That was a great little qualifying. That was really close. I think that was within a 10th and a half, 2/10 across the first few cars. So as we go down the track now, looking at all these wonderful liveries, what's the race tonight? Is it just the normal 60 minutes one stop?
No, it is a 45-minute no stop. So it is fill that tank and go to the end.
Ooh, that should be quite interesting. Obviously lighter loads, so people are going to be pushing pretty hard. Don't have to worry about tyres too much. So, and this track is pretty good for racing. You can get moves done. Plus, obviously, as we've just seen at that last chicane, it's very easy to make mistakes, and the sand around here can kill you. So
Absolutely.
should be a good watch. Plus, we always have to watch out for T1, lap 1, particularly here as the track goes from so wide to so narrow. It's such a sharp hairpin. There's always bound to be plenty of content.
Yes, the question is where is the 3 wide going to start for turn 1?
Instantly. There will immediately be 3 wide, and I'm assuming 4 wide by the time we get to the braking zone, so that should be a lot of fun. But just looking at the standings for this split so far, Joshua Vediga in his Ford is currently first, followed by JC, only a couple of points behind, and then Jaden Rondinella, who's listed here currently as silver, so I reckon he will be pushing for a promotion very soon. I think he's qualified 8th this race, so not too bad from him, but he's clearly performing very well. We'll see how far he goes up during the race.
Absolutely. This is going to be a very tight for the start. What is he? Yeah, as you said, 3rd for silver, the qualifying, so he's definitely not far off a promotion after his last couple of races as well.
And Brad Cook's trying to make a bit of a comeback. He's currently 4th in the championship, and he's put himself on pole for this race. So that, if he can maintain that, that'll be great points haul for him. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we walk past these wonderful liveries. Definitely not biased to this MRT livery, but I think it looks great. But all of these liveries are so good. We have so many talented livery artists in OOR. Can make any of your dreams come true.
It's a very good livery, and this Rowe BMW is obviously a classic for the GT3s on IRL, and that's a Koala Atlas one. I'm not biased to that Beamer at all. So David Marsh running that. As the cars begin their roll-off.
Looking forward to this race, and as always, thanks to our new title sponsor being Thermaltake. Make sure to check out their new racing wheel. I believe they have a G6 plus an entire sim racing ecosystem if you're looking for it. They have rigs and the wheels and pedals and everything that you'll need. So thanks to them again for their sponsorship. Obviously, we'll be giving away another mouse soon. We give away one mouse to a lucky driver every week, and I believe, I'm not sure if I think I'm allowed to be saying this, we do have a thermal overtake of the week coming up at some point, so make sure if you see a great overtake to note it down, hand it off to the admin somewhere, and then one lucky person will get picked every week for another prize for thermal overtake of the week.
There you go.
Thank you.
Tomorrow's stream, you'll get to see the thermal overtake of the week.
All right, give us a prediction. Give us your race winner. Who do you think is going to win?
See, I could go on a limb here, and I might say Benny Vintner might be on for it here.
Ooh.
If there's chaos at turn 1, he could stand to gain.
That is a good call. He is very, very quick. He is a quick operator behind the wheel of that Aston Martin. I am going to be very boring. I am going to say Brad Cook. I think he's going to survive T1 just with a bit of clean air. I think he's going to keep it and manhandle that Honda for 45 minutes. I think that's where this car will shine. But we will have to keep an eye out because the two McLarens behind him will be very, very feisty and will be right there. So buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be a great race. We've got to get through T1 first. So as we hear in double file, let's get racing. You want to call the start for this one, Zach? I'll give you the honors of this. I'll give you the honors of this brutal T1. Let's see what happens.
This Cheetos McLaren livery is absolutely amazing, especially in the sunset.
Gotta love a sunset.
As we're rounding the Coca-Cola curve onto the main straight to get round 3 started. Waiting for the lights to go green.
Green light, go, go, go.
There they go. We've got Cook with a good start. Well, he's not too far behind. He's actually alongside. Into turn 1, we've got very, very casual front run. Well, there's Chaos looking at the back. There it goes.
Oh my. Yep. Alright, everyone's still somewhat forwards. Not too bad.
Well, spoke too soon. No, he's righted. We're all good again.
Bit of pinball through T1, but actually that wasn't too bad. There's probably a little bit of damage, but nothing too severe. So, well played, well played. Everyone's still driving in the right direction. As you see here, Brad Cook seems to have a little bit of a gap in the lead. I think I saw correctly. I'm not sure what positions have been made at the moment. It's just complete chaos.
We have a safety car.
Actually, good point. It does look like a safety car. Yep, as there we have. Safety car.
There's the boards.
Interesting.
Must have been just a little too chaotic further back or something. Hopefully we can get a replay of anything that kicked off.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find that in a second, but as we have it, it looks like for the most part the positions at the front didn't change too much, although it looks like Vintner in his Aston's gone back a position, I believe. Lost one to that Ferrari.
So, yes.
Top 3 are still the same though, as we have Brad Cook followed by the 2 McLarens. And now coming into a safety car restart, I think it'll be even easier for him to keep that position into T1. So we'll see how we go. So yeah, very clean start from yellow. Not too bad at all. As here we move into a replay. Let's see what have we got here.
Looks like Miller's taken to the grass. Okay. So grass on the wheels and the braking zone never works out, and that's created a bit of a pinball.
Yeah,
further up. No, it's all well behaved. Been a cautionary yellow flag that.
They look to be a little bit more again further back. It seemed like there was another Porsche that spun around, so maybe there was still just a bit more. But I think everyone, while there was contact, it seemed like everyone ended up in the right direction. Let's move back to another replay now. Here we go. Yep, see, that McLaren was partly sideways, but then he was fixed. And now the Ferrari's straight. Yeah,
Yep.
bit of rubbing, bit of contact. As here we go back on the race start. Obviously, there won't be too much side-by-side action as Brad defends the inside with the fastest lap of a 2:34. Absolutely flying.
Oh, absolutely stonking lap there.
Everything looks nice and neat and tidy into T1 this time around.
Oh,
As I
there's a
say
Ferrari
that, someone
around.
has turned around. That's my bad. Apologies to that Ferrari.
I think that was Benny Vettner spinning around Kong.
Yeah, we'll have to... I'm sure we'll see a replay of that as well, whether it was self-inflicted or assisted. As here on board with Jack Miller in P6, trying to make a move on that Aston Martin, but gets a great run around the outside to defend that position. Well done. So, yeah. Interesting start so far, as here we've got a nice little race between this Aston, Porsche and McLaren.
Sort of, I guess we've settled down a little bit. We only have the one spin now, but an Aston, a Porsche, and a couple of McLarens. You see the three of these guys at the front, still relatively close.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on these guys, because obviously race pace isn't necessarily always identical to the qualifying pace, so maybe the Honda is just a bit more of a handful compared to the more modern McLaren. As clearly you can see, Ashan Lele is on the rear bumper of this Honda trying to burn a hole in it. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but for now, Brad Cook in the lead in that wonderful Honda, with Johnson trying to push past Lele as well, trying to gain those positions in this sunset. Absolutely stunning.
That would also, while looking visually stunning, would probably not be helping the drivers into turn one.
Yeah, it might be just a little bit bright for them. I hope they brought their sunnies. Try and keep that sun out of their eyes, as Lele now gets the fastest lap. So clearly, not sure what the difference is from that to Brad Cook, but clearly has the pace for now. We'll see where this ends up. But obviously, you need quite a lot of pace to be able to make the move around the outside of someone who isn't making a mistake. As here we come to another replay. I believe, yeah, this will be the Ferrari that was spun at T1. So we'll have to see what happens here. Perfectly normal, but yes, there was a bit of contact with that number 7 Aston Martin. This was assisted. Did he get out alive? Because that is quite an awkward spot, but I think he... yeah.
I believe he did, but unfortunately the safety car did hurt him.
That is quite unfortunate.
Dropped to the back of the field from that.
Yeah, well done on not rushing the rejoin, because that's very, very frustrating when things like that happen to you. So, well played. Well done on the rejoin, but it does hurt to see all those positions completely lost after a safety car like that. As now we're back on board with this battle pack at the top, going through the Schumacher S's. Seems to just, I'll say, settle down just a little bit. Obviously, these gaps aren't huge, but we'll have to see how these drivers are faring. Looks like everything's just settled down just a little bit. They've gotten themselves off each other's bumpers, and we'll see what the race pace is like.
Yes, I will also say now that it looks like, from what I can remember, Raupi is slowly reeling these three in as well. In about a second and a half. I think I saw it at about 2.5 seconds. I want to say a lap ago.
Yeah, it could be very easy to pull these guys in, particularly if they are fighting just a little bit, because I think I saw Lele took a huge amount of curb through the chicane just then. As you mentioned, there he is, fastest lap, 54.9, so he is well on his way to charge into this podium battle. So we'll have to see how that Mustang fares, as well as now we're on board with Benny Vintner, who I'm sure will have a little bit of an invoice coming, but regardless, we'll want to make up as many positions as he can on the bumper currently of the Porsche of Dylan McDowell.
Very wide line there from McDowell, but he brings it back in. Awkward exit turn 4. On they go.
Might be a little bit tricky to overtake a Porsche around this track because its corner exit acceleration is just so strong, being helped by the traction with the engine over the rear axle. But the Aston is very, very quick, so I feel like he should be focusing on the exits coming up into those longer straights to really, really make use of that top speed of that Aston to try and get this overtake done. So we'll see how he fares. This should be a good little race. I'm sure he has plenty of pace as they come through the Schumacher S's now. Really tricky to do when you're following another car because you can't quite see the line. You always got to watch out for a little bit of aero wash. As here he dives up the inside. Does he get it up far enough? He gives him the space. Now you got to watch for the Porsche. He's got the acceleration down there and the inside. But now you have to watch for the Aston because you'll get the good exit. But I think he just parked it on the apex enough. Yeah, didn't quite get the run on the exit there. The Porsche was in his way, so good defending there. But obviously we can see that he's desperately trying to make this move. So this should be a good little fight that we got going for the next few laps.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely keen to see that. I know full well how difficult it can be trying to get past a Porsche around here. Spent a good 35 minutes in a McLaren trying to do that, but it didn't work.
As we see a fastest lap come in for Lele with a 54.8, so he's turning up the wick again to try and catch Brad Cook. As here we see Ventana down the inside this time of the Porsche. I think this one will be easily done. Yeah, absolutely great move. We do see him trying to poke his nose back up the outside, but you're not going to be able to hold it around the outside of that corner there. So we'll see if he can make a move back. Ventana defending the inside to make sure he holds onto this position. And you got to watch out for Jack Miller too. You keep fighting, that's going to invite him to have a poke his nose up the inside as well. As we see a 15-second penalty for Miller. Actually, I missed that. What was that penalty for?
I believe that was a collision on lap 1. There's Vintner's 15-second as well for his spin of car. Also, just quietly, Ralpi is now within a second. He's now dropped out of a second, never mind.
Yeah, the top three seem to, I think they're picking up the pace a little bit. I think they've just settled down, they found their rhythm. So whether Ralpi doesn't quite have the overall pace to catch up to these guys like they did while they were fighting. But we can still, these guys are still very, very close. Johnson's still right behind Lele, who's definitely not that far behind Brad Cook. As we come into another replay, I believe this will be the penalty for Jack Miller as he goes right up the inside. Yes, so I believe he was possibly the driver that sort of instigated everything at T1, going onto the grass on the inside there. So yeah, that's quite fair for a 15-second penalty. He'll have to, unluckily, not have a pit stop to serve that, so that we'll just wait and see how that ends up at the end of the race. As here we are on board with Steve Lewis being chased by a Loopty, who has not currently yet looped it. Well done, Loopty.
Brad Cook with a 54.7 taking back fastest lap. He's now a second ahead of Lele.
Yeah, just starting to really put it in those quick laps, just consistently gaining a couple of tenths every lap Brad is now. So I'd love to see. Obviously, I will never say that he's completely home free because that last chicane exists, and also he's just driving a Honda, which might just kill you because it wants to. So we'll see if he can hold on to that for the rest of this race, but it does look like at the moment he has the pace to take the win here. Is here on board Jack Miller, who's still keeping on the back of the Porsche of McDowell. So clearly very similarly paced. We'll have to see if anyone's keen enough to make a move. Obviously, Miller will be keen to try and get as far up the field as he can to serve his invoice, keep those positions. And we have, I believe that's Lewis back there as well. That's also just keeping in range, you know? If there's any mistakes or whatnot, he'll be ready to pounce, as well as Rondinella back there.
Yeah, no, I think Lewis is probably in the best place you can be outside of P1. He's just far enough behind, well, he's just far enough back from the car ahead. He doesn't have to worry about trying to overtake, but he's just, so he doesn't have to worry about loopty behind in case. But he's also then close enough that if the guys ahead do have an incident, he can take advantage of it.
Yeah, often pays just to be able to keep in touch with a couple of these cars. Obviously, you want to run up and overtake them, and I'm sure he's trying to, but just being within range of a fighting group of cars is always a good place to be, just in case something happens. So here we are on board with JC, who I won't lie, personally, I'm surprised he's just down in 12th, but he is a busy man nowadays, so maybe he's just arriving and driving. He's chasing down the rear bumper of Spenceley in that Porsche. As now we have a fastest lap for Lele. They're just trading punches at the moment, getting down to a 54.6. I think as these temperatures come down and the fuel load comes off, actually I reckon there might be quite a lot of fastest laps through this race. These are pretty quick conditions compared to qualifying at least.
Absolutely. And even Johnson is just still hanging on the back of Lele, just tagging along as they go to catch up to Cook.
Coming out of the exit of the Mercedes Arena, such an awkward corner. Just the entire section, that is I'm not a huge fan of. It's so difficult to get the right line there. But then, coming down here through the, I believe, the Valvoline curve and then through the Ford curve, these two corners are very nice. Feels excellent when you get them right. Forwards towards the sunset, try and make sure you don't blind yourself. Pick your braking marker into this long hairpin. As you can see, the McLarens can carry quite a lot of speed through there, sort of coast it, and then very late on the throttle, and then up to the Schumacher S's here. As we have a 15-second penalty come in for David Barker with a collision on lap 5. So a few penalties, but honestly not too bad. I'll say relatively clean from yellow so far. As we jump onto Neil Wood right on the rear bumper of Marsh here.
Marsh doing well, keeping this little train going, being the leader. That Beamer would also be quite handy on some of these more aggressive curves, like through the S's. We know that McLaren is obviously very good in the corners with its downforce.
Yeah, the BMW's always been fairly decent over the curbs, so can just sort of flatten out these corners a bit more, but the McLaren's got such excellent, I'll say, high speed cornering ability that it sort of makes up for that anyway, so should be a good little battle here. It looks like there's a bit of a train behind Marsh at the moment, so he's clearly put his defending hat on. He's made that BMW as wide as possible. It's followed by this McLaren and then a couple of Aston Martins as well, who would all be very excited to try and get past. So here we are back through with the top 3. It does look like Brad Cook's just, I'll say, pulling away just a little bit, but it's still just sitting around a second. So sort of just within range for these guys. You have to be a bit careful because obviously you'll start losing the little bit of slipstream that you'd have down the straights to try and keep in touch. But obviously you do again get that back a little bit through the corners with less dirty air. But Luke Johnston also staying in touch quite nicely, only 4/10 or so behind Lele. We'll have to see how these guys go with about 30 minutes left in the race.
Yeah, we're about a third of the way in, and yeah, no, it's still anyone's game. Obviously, those Honda tyres could easily give up the goat in the last 10 minutes. Who knows? As Rolpe is also just quietly sitting himself in 4th, 2 seconds behind, 3 seconds ahead of the guy behind. He's doing quite well.
Yeah, he's found himself a nice little spot there, and he hasn't got too much to concern himself at the moment with, because obviously Vintner behind does have that 15-second penalty. So really, the car behind him for position is about 5 seconds. So obviously he'd want to be trying to catch up, but he's pretty happy where he is at the moment. As we jump on board with Ryan King, trying to get past this Ford of Frost Duck. I believe that's how you pronounce your name. Sorry, mate, if it isn't. Coming up to the Schumacher S's. Yeah, trying to, as he goes a bit wide, you got to watch out for that sand because it will absolutely chew your exit speed up. As we'll see the McLaren pull to the outside at the moment, brakes nice and late, tries to carry the speed around the outside. Great move, keeps it on track so far. The Ford's still on the outside, plenty of racing room given. See who gets the better exit down this straight. Currently the Ford is ahead, but he catches the sand, so he is ahead. But I believe the McLaren should have a bit of a speed gain. But obviously the Ford is very, very quick still, even with the restrictor. And he does hold that position coming up into this final chicane. So good little bit of racing there as he backs right off to make sure he gets through the chicane. Yeah, so we have to see, clearly has a bit of pace on him at the moment. That was a great little fight there. Nice one.
15-second penalty for Jeff Beaton for a collision on lap 7. I wonder what that might have been. But as we see, the penalties are slowly starting to come in now by the looks of it. We have Kong here inside of H Marsh.
I believe Kong was the person that was spun around near the start of the race, right? He'll be trying to make his recovery drive through all these other cars. So that was a good move by him.
Certainly was. Very lovely overtake.
Remember to keep an eye out for your favourite overtakes. Keep note of them, hand them in, and obviously for drivers as well, go be heroes, go make some moves, try and get yourself a little prize that isn't a penalty anyway. Don't be that much of a hero. As here we are with Spenceley going through the Schumacher S's. I'm not sure if he's trying to hunt down, I mean he would be trying to hunt down Convoy, but I'm not sure whether he has the pace for that at the moment, but he will be trying to hold off that rapid Mustang of Appreciato behind him.
I'm not sure if JC was behind Spenceley a couple laps ago or not, but Spenceley, oh here we go, got to go up with a very late dive, and he pulls it up, gets it well done.
Actually, another person I think might be doing a bit of a recovery drive. I'm surprised to see Vediger down in 24th. So,
yeah,
because he is the championship leader, so clearly something's happened to him because he qualified 4th, no? Or at least further up the grid. So I've missed something or forgotten something. So he's on a bit of recovery drive as well, so he will be having to make some moves.
Oh,
I see.
No, that's not me. Oh,
That,
no.
oof, that's not good. Yep, clearly he was pushing very hard to try and make some spots back, and that was not necessarily the best spot to do that, but it seems like everyone else at least got away with it a little bit, so in a way sort of penalised him himself there, so very unlucky. Not what you want to see, but he did only have 26 minutes or so to try and get those spots back. So as we jump back on board now with Lele, who has closed the gap to Brad Cook, it is now down to half a second, and he's pulled the gap on Johnson, which has moved up to 2. So clearly just found a bit of another gear, or just a rhythm at the moment. So well done from Lele. We'll have to see how this goes.
Yes, as he also looks to have dropped Johnson as well, so he doesn't have to worry about an attack from behind.
Always one of the hardest parts with racing in these sort of packs is when you're trying to make a move forward but having to defend backwards as well. So easy to try and make a move on someone and then you end up compromising your line and getting overtaken from the back. As I just noticed that he disconnected on the grid. So yeah, that'll do it. Didn't have any accidents, he just... Yeah, alright.
No, it was either a disconnect or a pit start, who knows.
That is unfortunate. Yeah. We'll have to see. Maybe we'll find out a bit later, but very unfortunate regardless.
Yeah. And here's the replay of what's happened.
Gets the exit out of the chicane, decides to try and make the move, but just... Yeah, I don't believe he was really ever going to be given that space, and that space closes onto a big old curb into a wall. So I can see why he wanted to make that move, but I'm not sure that was necessarily the best move. So unfortunate for Vediger there. Not what you want to see, to be honest.
It is obviously a spot, and I think he probably would have been a little better off if he was a smidge further back on the track, but that pit wall takes no prisoners.
As we jump back on board now with Raupi in that Mustang, slowly trying to chase down Johnson, just trying to keep somewhat in range at the moment. As we go back now, with another moment through the Schumacher S's with, I believe that's McDowell catching the curbs on the inside there and just absolutely launching the car sideways. Well done for holding onto that one. But yeah, it's so easy to do that here. Some of these curbs, if you hit them wrong, will just bounce you sideways, and then the sand just completely eats up all your speed that you lose. So yeah.
As he gets through it this time without issue.
We'll have to see if he can try and make the move back, because the cars here clearly seem very similarly paced, but he was holding off that McLaren for quite a while, as you see Vediger with a 10-second penalty for causing collision on lap 9. So I believe that
would have been the hairpin.
Yeah, I believe that would have been on that poor Aston Martin. So a bit unfortunate there, but 10 seconds seems about right. Wasn't super malicious, but could have been a little bit better. As here we are on with JB Comboy, I believe, in the Pixel Racers Mustang, driving down the inside of this black Porsche using the top speed of that Ford. Pulls it up nicely, gets it to the apex. I believe the Porsche is still on his outside. There it is. Yep, gets a good exit. Yeah, great move from Jamie. Clearly set up the exit onto the front straight. and then just drove down the inside. So very well done.
Very well done.
As here we are back on board with McDowell in his Porsche guys MRT livery. So yeah, as we were saying, we'll have to see if he can chase Lewis back down, and then again also make a move. It's very difficult to do with when the pace is so similar. But as long as you're still within the region, he can obviously gain that spot back, because it could be very easily for anyone else to make a mistake similar to him. So you can't quit just yet. Even if you can't necessarily make the move on pace alone, it is very difficult to keep it on track for even 45 minutes around here, because these curbs and bumps and whatnot can be very vicious.
Absolutely, as Rondinella just casually sitting there, just trying to make his way up to the back of McDowell. Comfortably in third for silver, so that's a job well done so far.
As you jump on board now with Lele really putting the pressure on Brad Cook. Not sure if he's made a bit of a mistake, if he's just picked up the pace a little bit. He's almost poking his nose up the inside there, coming down into this back straight. We'll have to see how they get the run through the chicane. I'm sure that can be a little bit tricky, and with the pressure it's always hard to keep it going, but they both get through it cleanly, so not too bad so far. I don't think he'll have the exit to get alongside down the front straight, but yeah, clearly just sort of holding the burner to the back of Brad Cook's car at the moment, letting him feel the pressure and seeing if he can force a mistake at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, the McLaren won't have the legs of the Honda, but definitely be able to keep up through the likes of the Mercedes arena and such.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he sort of can gain this time, as he goes very shallow there. Actually a pretty good line through the end of the Mercedes arena there, as David Marsh gets a stop for go 10 for causing a collision on lap 11. That is a hefty fine. I believe this replay is likely what that will be.
No,
is it? No, that was
on the inside of Spence.
Yep, that was just a demonstration of what that chicane can do. Even if you hold on to it, you hit the dirt and the grass on the outside, it sucks you off the track, and you just lose a bunch of time. So it pays to just keep it as clean as possible. Obviously, you don't want to make mistakes normally, but here it really punishes you with those spots, and it's hard to not make those mistakes. So now we jump back on board with Jamie Conboy. He's slowly chasing down Stockton to get back into that P10. As they come through here through the Dunlop curve, nice long corner, use the banking, run out wide to get this exit up to the Schumacher S's, and then ride this curb on the outside to drop in, run one on the inside, try and not hit that sand there, because that chews up all your speed. As you can see, he's looking down the inside. I don't think he's going to try and make that move, but he's just showing the nose, making sure he is aware that Jamie Conboy is in his mirrors. Start really putting pressure on and wait for a mistake. As they come here up the back straight towards this final chicane, it does look like he's going to try and make a move, or at least, yeah, not making the move, just showing the nose again, trying to force that error into the chicane. Very easy to do, to brake late, and then you hit the inside curb as he sticks the nose in. Racing room is given. Let's see who can get the better traction on the exit. It looks like the Ferrari was a little bit squiggly, and now the Ford should be able to pull past. It is, the Bob now has a restrictor on it, so it's not as quick as it used to be, but yeah, he just had the better exit and just pulls out nicely. So we'll have to see if he tries to do anything into the braking zone here, the Ferrari, but it looks like Jamie Conboy has this one stitched up. So that is a good move on Stockton. Another one down the front straight into T1. That's, yeah, great racing from the both of them. Back on board now with McDowell. Currently in P8. It doesn't look like he's been able to hold on to Lewis, so it looks like he did have a bit of pace on him, just not enough to force the move, but now he's got Rondinella on the back of him as well, trying to burn a hole in his rear bumper. He'll be desperate to try and not make a mistake, and obviously if these guys keep fighting too much, Jamie Conboy will be on the back of this little pack as well in no time at all. So JC with a good little recovery drive, as you might call it, so far. He's gotten himself into the top 10 with a couple of nice little moves into T1 that we've seen so far. Seen a couple of people lose out through the Schumacher S's because of the sand and the curbs, and particularly the final chicane. Really catching people out because it is such a difficult corner to nail every single lap. I have to see how they come through it this way. I'm sure Dylan is feeling the pressure a little bit at the moment as we get this wonderful shot through the chicane. Look at that. Watching all the cars move through there is absolutely excellent. Watching the Ford eat all that curb. Obviously Ferrari might have to be a little bit careful. As you see Dylan get a little bit of a squirrely exit there coming out of the final corner onto the straight. I don't think he'll be under too much pressure, but I'm sure the McLaren does have a bit of a speed advantage over the Porsche, particularly with the toe. So you have to keep an eye out in the braking zone, but the Porsche is pretty decent on the brakes. Moves to the inside a little bit to cover up. Runs a little bit wide, but that's fine. He's still got the track position coming into the start of the Mercedes arena here. But yeah, I think if we're going to start watching these two fight a little bit, JC will be rubbing his hands together, looking for a couple of extra spots. He'll be very keen to gain some more positions. I reckon he'll be on the back of these two in no time. Reminds you of the curb cam in the V8s. I can see that in chat. Yeah, that's a great camera angle. We love the shots that our director here, Ben Hingdit, can get us. Pulls out some wonderful shots, particularly with that sunset that we've had. ACC is such a good looking game. As we see Rondinella doing a bit of grass mowing there. Interesting line, but he's still there. He's all good. Coming through the long hairpin as he really is trying to just stick the nose around this Porsche of McDowell. Just trying to make sure he knows that he's there, force a little bit of an error, see what he can make happen. Not getting too forceful. Obviously you don't want to run into the car and get yourself a penalty, but just trying to get in their head and play a few mental games. It's sort of what you got to do at this stage because the pace is so similar. You can't just make an overtake on pure pace alone. So just getting through into their head, trying to play mind games, make them make a mistake on a corner exit, which allows things like this, where you can try and get a little bit of a run down a long straight. We'll see if he wants to stick the nose up into the chicane. He doesn't, but now he's going to have to watch for JC. Disregard. JC went a little bit deep there. Obviously that was a bit cheeky, getting nearly 3 cars into that chicane, very, very close. So these two are still together, but JC clearly has the pace on these two while they're fighting, so I'm sure he'll be back there in no time at all. As you come now to a replay, watching this sick looking Ford on the back of this Nissan. Ooh, that is unfortunate. Just straight into that back of that Nissan there at the exit of the Mercedes arena. As you watching Rondinella get very sideways through there. Well done to hold on to that. Hasn't lost too much time. As we see, JC is already on the back of these guys again already. Great little battle pack we got here. So far, so clean. We can see Dylan McDowell's doing a good job holding these guys up. Even with a little bit of a hiccup through the chicane previously, JC is right there as well. And we'll also just keep an eye on that top fight because Lele is still within 5/10 of Brad Cook. So they are right next to each other for this entire race. With Johnson and Vintner just a few seconds behind them. Looks like Raupi... it looks like Raupi has just been overtaken by Vintner. So he's lost out a little bit, but as long as he's within the 15 seconds, because Vintner still has that 15-second pen that he will have to can't serve as there are no pit stops, he will get that position back at the moment. As we see a 15-second penalty come through for Frühstück, I believe someone said their name was pronounced. As we come into a replay here with the Aston Martin up the inside of this Ford through this left-hander. Yeah, that was a very, very good move. It's not common that you see a move get done through there, so they must have gotten a very good exit. So yeah, absolutely great racing there. Well done, well set up, very clean from everyone involved.
As we see JC right on the back of this little group now. Say in about 30 minutes, those McLaren tyres and the Porsche tyres probably aren't feeling the greatest anymore.
Yeah, I think particularly at this half-hour mark, this race might not actually be the greatest for the Porsches because I believe around this half-hour mark between the fuel and the tyres, it does get a little bit unruly. Although the fuel levels would be a bit different, so maybe it's not as bad. But yeah, the Porsche is known for having a bit of a phase during races, so it could explain a little bit of this pace. So we'll have to see how he goes in the last 10 minutes if he can sort of pull that some of that pace back.
A little bit of a slide from Loop D.
Clearly pushing as hard as he possibly can to try and stay on the rear bumper of this Porsche to try and force an error, be as close as he can so he can make sure he can make the most of any mistakes that come from the Porsche, as it does look like he's a little bit wide there. He might have clipped the sand. I don't think JC's quite close enough to sort of do anything there, but he has fallen off the back of McDowell this lap just a little bit so far, so clearly he's maybe pushed these tyres just a bit too much and they're not quite up to par anymore. As he has done a couple of slides, and we're going to have to watch JC now pulling up to this chicane and then probably down the front straight as well. He might be getting real close here.
Go on the nose into the chicane, but he's going to set up for the front straight, I reckon.
Looks like he got a decent exit. The McLaren was a little bit squirrely, but clearly not the worst as well. Still got the power down somewhat nicely. So nothing happening just yet, but we can see he's just sticking to the inside a little bit. He is feeling the pressure of JC being there. He's going to have to be careful he doesn't go too wide there, but nothing happening just yet, but they're clearly aware of everyone and they're starting to make defensive moves. JC putting the pressure on Rondinella, and I think this might allow McDowell to just run away a little bit, because obviously this McLaren's not going to be able to push too much further forward while he is making defensive moves and whatnot from Jamie Conboy behind.
Yep, so we've got about 10 minutes to hold on, so yellow flag, turn 1. Not sure, it might be Atanyake, I think, 2.
Yeah, I believe that was the number 2, so we might get a replay on that eventually, see if that was solo or maybe another assisted spin, as we're back on this great curb cam, watching everyone come through. I believe that's the Schumacher S's, so carrying lots of speed through there. A great shot, that one. As we come down through this left-hander, a bit squirrely there from the Porsche. It does look like they've just closed these gaps a little bit again, so clearly everybody just making little mistakes here and there. They sort of gain a bit of a gap and then lose it again. We'll have to see where the next bit happens as everyone's moving around, just getting in each other's mirrors, trying to make them make a mistake, particularly into that chicane. We've seen so many people die to that chicane already, and it's just the first race of the night. As the Porsche gets a great exit.
I was going to say, I think as McDowell's as the Porsche starting to get a little bit more of a handful. As you said, he obviously got a little bit of a breathing room from these two, and now suddenly they're right down his neck again.
Yeah, it's so easy to just make a couple of little mistakes, and you know, like you say, you've got a bit of a gap, but 1 second can disappear very, very quickly, just over the course of a lap. So you've got to be careful with that. But he is keeping it on track, and here we are back on board with your top 2, who are still right next to each other. Absolute pressure cooker from Lele, but very, very good from Brad Cook to not make any significant mistakes so far and keep hold of that track position in P1 with just under 9 minutes left to go.
Yeah, no, he's done absolutely brilliantly so far. Keeping that off as we get this fight still going on into the Thermaltake.
Been some absolutely wonderful fights so far. Hopefully nothing ends in too much sadness before this end of this race, but obviously with the timer ticking down, I'm sure everybody involved in a little bit of a battle pack like this one are going to be keen to get those spots that they want. Obviously, Lele is going to be pushing like hell to try and at least get a mistake out of Brad, because clearly trying to overtake him at the moment just seems like a nigh-on impossible task. They've been running around for nearly 40 minutes at the moment, with no more than a second gap between them, so Been a great race for these two so far. I'm sure they're feeling very sweaty in those cockpits. As here we are back on board now with the other battle group between McDowell, Rondinella and Convoy coming into the final corner.
Convoy just dipping a wheel on the grass on exit there, but he's able to keep it in a straight line, and hopefully the Mustang power will help him at least keep up with these two.
As you can see, maybe Rondinella going a little bit defensive into T1 there. McDowell's going defensive there. Rondinella trying to make a move, but nothing's quite happening at the moment. But you got to be careful, because if you do compromise your line a little bit on offense, now you've got JC sitting in the wings who's ready to make a move on you. So as I mentioned before, it's just so tricky being that car in the middle, trying to move forward, but also trying not to fall backwards. It's a very, very difficult spot to be in. So I'm sure he'll be the best defense for Rondinella at the moment. I think we'll be trying to move forward and get a car between him and Convoy, and I'm sure he knows that, but that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, and with no pit stops, there's obviously no chance for JC to get himself a drive through. So he's going to be he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. The loop to go deep. JC gets the inside, which is going to be outside for the Schumacher S. And you give. There he's just... No, he's held it.
That's absolutely great racing from the two of them to hold it side by side through the Schumacher S's. That's absolutely nuts. Great respect from the both of them as JC still holds it around the outside of that corner. Manages to keep it alongside. A bit of rubbing, that's fine. As he sticks it up the inside, we'll have to see the exit now. It does look like JC has the advantage. He's now a car length ahead. I don't believe the exit of the McLaren was so much better that he'd get this spot back. So it looks like JC has finally got this move done on Rondinella, as he does try and sneak it back up the inside of the chicane, but that's never going to happen. Loses the exit a little bit, and now JC is going to be hunting down McDowell for the rest of this race. He's got 5 minutes to pull this 2-second gap back and try and make one last move. As we see, Atanyake with a 5-second penalty for out of position on the formation lap. That is, wow, that took a while to come through. That is very unfortunate. Just 5 seconds. Bit rough to see that right at the very end, but I think we saw that he'd spun at T1 before as well, so I don't think it's quite necessarily his day tonight. It's just a bit of a cherry on top for him.
Yes, it's very unfortunate, as these two are still going. I would not be surprised if this goes till the end.
Fingers crossed there's no, I'll say, silly moves done by either of these two before the end of the race, because this has been great watch so far, within 5/10 of each other for so long. As we jump on now with Brian Kong in their Rockets Evolved car, trying to make a move here. Actually, no, Brian Kong's the Ferrari, am I right? And he has made a move on this Aston Martin of Veselovsky. So well done, as we have a slow car on the right, likely a blue flag, I would assume. Likely.
Oh, sure, such.
As we can see, Brian Kong still with a bit of a recovery drive, which that's just so much more difficult tonight with only 45 minutes and no pit stop. It's much harder to try and make all these spots back up again. But so far, so good. He's made some clean moves.
As we start yet another lap with these two separated by less than half a second.
Absolutely crazy race from these two so far. A lot of respect being shown clearly. They've can both trust each other enough that they're not going to do anything too silly. Lele clearly doesn't have the raw pace to try and make a move on Brad Cook, and Brad Cook has not made, as far as I can tell, any mistakes in that deadly Honda. So, great race from the two of these at the moment, but I'm sure Lele will be desperate for that P1.
Oh no, absolutely. He'll be trying to put on immense pressure, and Cook is just... he's handling it very well so far.
Obviously, Brad Cook is an OLR veteran, so I'm sure he is used to the pressure cooker that is Lele at the moment. But regardless, as we've seen so much before, you can just hit a curb wrong at this track. You can just touch the sand and lose a bunch of speed, and also he's just driving the Honda as we come through the great camera shot through the Schumacher S's. Yeah, absolutely great race from these guys at the moment. And we're getting just about 2.5 minutes left to go, so I suspect probably 2 more laps after this lap is finished. So time is running out for Lele at the moment to try and make something happen. It doesn't look like he's quite got the pace to be on his rear bumper at the moment, so I think he just needs to make himself as active as possible in the mirrors of Brad Cook to try and distract him to get anything to happen. So here we jump to a replay.
Daryl Lim in his GTR. Oh, he's eaten the curb and it spat him back out.
Yeah, very bouncy off those curbs. Just watching even the GTR can struggle with these things sometimes. So, looked like he didn't take too much damage, but obviously you don't want to be out there regardless. That is not part of the racing line. As we come down now, so...
Hey, another one who's sort of not had a great night tonight. But these two, again, probably as you said, coming on to probably the second last lap. Still half a second in it. Could be anyone's to play for.
Yeah, it's really tricky for the drivers in this circumstance. Obviously, Brad Cook is just keeping an eye on him in the mirrors, not defending open air if he doesn't have to. Just trying to keep that Honda on track, and Lele just trying to find as much time as he possibly can in that Cheetos McLaren to get as close as he can to that Honda, just to try and make anything happen. Because clearly, for 44 minutes so far, Brad hasn't made enough of a mistake to capitalise on, but he needs one in this last minute. As now we jump on with Jamie Comboy, who's just about reeled in Dylan McDowell on that Porsche. Obviously, he did have the 2-second gap, and he was just able to pull it away while the other two were fighting. But now he's onto that rear bumper, and I believe these guys will... I think this will be the last lap. No, these guys will have another lap too, I think. Is that how that works?
Yes. It'll be...
Yeah.
Yeah, once Cook crosses the line, and that'll be the start of the final lap.
Yeah. So, JC's got another lap and a half or something to try and make a move on Dylan McDowell. But Dylan McDowell's been pretty good tonight as well. Obviously, he did have that one mistake through the Schumacher S's, but apart from that, he has been very strong in defense so far tonight. But we'll have to see what they can do, because JC can get very close and up in your mirrors and right into that sort of headspace, particularly coming up into this last chicane. He's already been seen trying to stick his nose in a couple of spots to force an error. And the Ford just has so much speed over the McLaren, particularly in, the Porsche, particularly in the toe. I'm sure he's going to be looking at the exit for this last corner down the straight to see if something can happen. Touches the grass a little bit, but that's fine. Ford's a lawnmower, apparently. See how they come through onto the final lap of the race.
And just ahead of these two, actually, a quiet little successful night. Lewis, Pro-Am driver, currently sitting 7th. He's been chugging along quietly all night. And he's currently got these two right behind him to hold off for a lap. Cook and Lele still half a second.
We did see a 10-second penalty come in for Kong there in the Ferrari, so just not a great night for him either. But another cherry on top with a 15-second penalty coming in for Ryan King on the last lap here. As you see now, they've just gone past a blue flag, and Lele is very close to the back of Brad Cook, but it did look like he just touched the sand on that outside, which is absolutely devastating with about less than half a lap to go. Just losing a bit of time out there. As now we jump back on JC. He's also trying to make a move, so he's around the outside of the Dunlop curve here. Going to focus on the exit. Now, we have seen him make a move through the Schumacher S's before, but he's not going to be alongside the Porsche for this. So he's just going to settle in, make sure he nails this line. See if Dylan McDowell touches the sand anywhere, makes any mistakes. Looks like they are coming up. Is that blue flag traffic? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it'll affect them. Yeah, actually.
It might be, as we see Cook come across the line.
Has finished the race.
Half a second ahead of Lele, P1 and P2. Now this still rages on.
Absolutely incredible race from the top two. Yep, past the blue flag, taking out a sign there from JC. I think he actually got a little bit sideways touching the grass there, but he's held onto it as he's going to try and push this last corner. I don't think he's quite going to be able to get past the Porsche here. Just needs to get a solid exit. Yeah, well done from Dylan McDowell. on defending off from JC there. Great little race. And great race from Brad Cook and Lele as well. As here we on board with Stockton coming across the line just behind him, Appreciato in the Ford. What a race. There was lots of little moves there, some great racing, respectful racing. What a good day at the track.
Absolutely brilliant race from the top two, with Ralphie holding his own quite a bit early on, and obviously Dylan McDowell being able to just hold off JC at the end there.
Now we'll have to see where a couple of these drivers end up with their penalties at the end of the race, but obviously everyone's doing their celebratory donuts, making sure you got plenty of tyre left. So yeah, that was an absolutely great night of racing. I am going to vote Lele as driver of the day. Being able to stick so close behind Brad Cook for 45 minutes is really well done, to be honest, and also not making any moves to cause an accident, because so many drivers will get flustered that they can't make a move. That is a great drive from Lele. I'm sure he wanted P1, but you cannot be upset with that sort of driving.
No, absolutely. Very worthy of a driver of the day performance. However, I'm actually going to say driver of the day for me is Lewis, with a qualified 13th, very quiet race all night, and he sits himself after the penalties in P6. Absolutely hard charging.
Very good point. That is a great drive from Lewis as well. As we'll come now and we'll check the final standings for this race. So, with your overall, we do have Brad Cook taking the win just over Eshan Lele, followed by Luke Johnson in the two McLarens. Moving down into silver, we did have Raupi, followed by Rondinella, and then Miller in a Pro-Am. We had Lewis with a great drive today, followed by Stockton and Appreciato, and then finally for your AM drivers, we have Byrne, James, and then Kranich. However, it didn't look like Kranich finished the race. So yeah, what an absolutely wonderful race there at the Nurburgring. Always delivers. It might not necessarily be full of overtakes, but just great racing there.
Absolutely brilliant racing all around. Cannot wait to race here tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So obviously, make sure you stick with us. We do have another race coming up with, I believe, Split Green. So there will be even more content coming this way. And then tomorrow night, we have Split Red. And I believe, is it the GT4s tomorrow as well? Racing somewhere?
Yes, the multi-class Split Blue at Donington.
That's the one at Donington, one of my favourite tracks. So that will be absolute content as well.
Absolutely.
So we will move over soon into the next split. So thank you for hanging out with us tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. As we leave you in the ever capable hands of Tim Gobe and John Gormley.
How are we, lads?
Thank you very much. We're doing well. Tim, your mic is muted. And now we can't hear you.
He's so shy, he's just speechless.
Oh, there he goes. He's found his voice. So, thank you guys. It was a lovely race, and hoping the next one, less contact, hopefully, but just as much racing.
Well, now you've
More
jinxed
content.
it, so good luck with that.
You just had to say it.
More content. Yes.
Good luck, guys. We'll leave you to it.
Oh, you got the fun.
Thank you very much.
Catch you, fellas.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome you back to the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series. This season is sponsored by Thermaltake, and this time we're at the Nurburgring. How are you, Tim?
Yeah, we're at the Nurburgring. Unfortunately, we're not in the Nordschleife, but I just want to take your attention away to that beautiful, beautiful PC case that was just showcased earlier. I love these. Is low-key the correct word? These minimalistic-looking cases, and I just like that it's not just glass on the side, but glass at the front. I think it was absolutely beautiful. Kind of want one of my own now.
Well, I can see the sort of beauty and aesthetic in that because it's similar to minimalistic houses and just architecture, where simplicity in itself is also beautiful if it functions properly. And as such, making sure your PC functions properly too. Thermaltake cooling, premium cooling, it's great. Alrighty, we're looking at both Underwood. Oh no, we're not looking at. I'm still getting used to this new layout. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, we're on board with John Hislop in the number 18 Porsche Silver class, but let's be honest, there's a little bit of pro in there already. Yeah, he's currently P8 in just free practice. Now I'm not sure if these guys are on quali fuel or on race fuel, but if it was me, I'd probably be practicing quali fuel because for this. This race specifically, 45-minute race, no mandatory pits, so there's no real strategy here. There's no pit stops, so you just go out there. It's just pure skill. And also, just keeping your nose clean, too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, quality's gonna be very important on this track. It's not easy to pass. It's very high speed. As I say that, then you look at Mercedes Arena, which is very low speed. But it's not an easy track to pass on. There's a lot of turn 1 chaos as we see Jonathan Hislop doing a thick drift around, what was that, for the curve? No, that was not for the curve. That was
Michelin
curve. No. That was turn 12. That was a very, very impressive drift. As impressive as it was, it's not the fastest way around the track. But sometimes all you gotta be aiming for is style points, and it's only free practice, so it doesn't really matter at the moment. But good to see that he managed to save that, as we're now looking at Luca Giacomin. Personal opinions on this track, John?
I do not like it. That's because I suck at it. Now, obviously, everybody's going to be biased towards that, but for me, the track does feel really good. There's a lot of high speed, but just the low speed and somewhat the off-camber curbs as well just give me some trouble as a less skilled Pro-Am driver.
From a 1 to 10, 1 being Monza for you, and 10, I don't even know what your favorite track is.
I don't even know my favorite. I think Bathurst is up there. Oh, no. My favorite track is the Nordschleife, which is everything but this section.
So, 1 being Monza, 10 being the Nordschleife. Where would you rate this track?
I'd have to say this would be sitting around a 6 or a 7 for me, because there is good racing that happens here, but there's not many opportunities to pass, and there's also not many, there's quite a few cars that are strong here, and it's well balanced overall. That's the thing. Except T1 is a bit of a danger zone. That's what I wanted to ask you. Where do you think will be the biggest danger zone other than T1? Is it possible the Schumacher S's or the silly chicane up there?
I reckon Schumacher S's, if you're going side by side, yes, very dangerous, but I think some of these drivers, if they're feeling aggressive, if they're feeling confident that their competitors are going to give them space, I've found out that you can make a pass stick at the chicane, but you've got to have full commitment, and you've got to trust that the guy alongside you, especially if you're in the inside, is going to give you the room to make the pass. Another one actually is Coca-Cola Curve, the final corner. That one could get interesting, especially if someone's trying to hold the inside. The pit entry is right there, and I have seen in the past drivers actually collect the wall at the pit entry as they're making their way around the final corner. So it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, like you said, I think either Schumacher S's or the RNG chicane could be interesting points in the race.
Yeah, for me, I've had a lot of trouble with these Schumacher S's, but I'm not sure because there's a left-hander and then there's a right-hander. And sometimes, just out of nowhere, after the left-hander, I'm lining up the right-hander, the car just decides to have zero traction, I go flying off the track into the wall. And I'm not very happy about that, but, it is what it is.
You've been lacking a bit of practice, John.
Oh, very much so.
You just gotta...
Yeah.
It's just a bit of practice. We have Glory Babby with a 53.9 in 25 Celsius weather in the Ford Mustang. Glory Babby been absolutely flying these few races. He's had a very, very intense end to the second race at Spa last week. Going side by side with J-Rad, a bit of contact here and there, but he's managed to get the win in that race just at the very final lap as J-Rad looked like he spun at the final chicane, but just seems like he just forgot to turn his traction control back on, and the car said, "Nope, I'm gonna spin right here." So looking forward to see what Glory Babby can do for us today.
Man, this Belgian grass is really tasty. No. But yeah, obviously, last race with the format of the reverse grid, there was a lot of content, there was a lot of racing, there was a lot of just people being in positions that normally they wouldn't be in. And that caused for a lot of just different driving aesthetics as well. But now, with a proper quality, proper race, we've got Babby, we've got Giacomin, we got Barker, Thurcolini, Mags, Mateen, Pro-Am, P4. I'm not sure if that's unusual or not. Maybe, some people are misclassed, but that's not really an issue in some cases. But yeah, there's plenty of very fast people in this split as well, not just split yellow and split red.
About fast people, we're now looking at the Porsche of Damiano Turcolini, another very, very fast driver. Wondering what they can do in the Porsche. They've not had the best of luck the last two races, so let's hope that they can turn this around. They're currently sitting in P5 in free practice. Mateen being 0.7 off Glory Babby is very, very impressive. You talked about the classification, but there's always some tracks where perhaps someone's going to be a lot better than they are at other tracks. But Mateen as a whole has been absolutely flying as well. And I think perhaps he's looking at a possible upgrade to silver in the future. But let's see what he can pull this race as well.
Yeah, because obviously, based on classes, it's not just pace alone. There's racecraft, there's consistency. Because if it was pace alone, I'd be silver. But I'm not, because I suck, I crash, I panic a little bit under pressure, specifically side by side. And I'm going to keep blaming my pedals, my Logitech pedals, because I refuse to clean them out, and it's all on me, but a bad workman blames his tools. Now, as we're moving on, free practice is almost ending, and we'll finally be able to see. See, the thing is, when I drive the Nurburgring, it feels like it's a fast track. It just feels slippery for me. That's just my personal issues. Was Torcolini doing a drift? Oh no, it's just the angle of the camera.
I mean, you talked about your pedals. You refused to clean them out. However, if you do well this sprint season and you end up in the finals and win the finals, you can get yourself a brand new Thermaltake steering wheel and pedal set, 6 Newton meters, and it's direct drive. So that'd be a good upgrade for you.
I'll be right back. I'm cleaning my pedals now. No. Yeah. I mean, that is honestly, hopefully, we get to see a lot of very high skilled players duke it out. Racers, sorry. We're immersion. We're real racers, Hey, sim racing enthusiasts. But we'd like to see what kind of finals, what people can extract from that, because this season I've been doing very well for myself in terms of consistency, in terms of pace as well. Like, I've been driving with the same old Logitech G29 for the last 3 seasons, but just this specific season I found a mountain of pace, and I feel like I haven't had to grind as hard for it.
It all comes with practice, John, as we're now off of free practice. Obviously there's still a couple drivers still on that lap. It looks like one of the drivers decided to do a pit stop, but we're still looking at Luca Giacomin, star on the track at the moment, the last car on track, and as they cross the start-finish line, we should be headed for qualifying. So this is going to be some exciting stuff here at Split Green. Got a few very quick drivers. I'm wondering if we could potentially get a new name on pole this race.
Everything's up for grabs here. Everything is up for grabs because you never know what might happen. Some people just have a very good drive. Some people will just get incredibly lucky.
It's not just about luck, as the good old saying of Ricky Carmichael, the better I ride, the more lucky I seem to get. So yes, luck is a factor, but luck is useless to you if you do not put in the hours to get into the correct pace, as we're now out for qualifying. J-Mag's first car out on track.
Is that a 1996 Jeep Cherokee XJ next to the van?
That is absolutely disgusting. Get that car off my screen! No! You cannot bring this here! Get it away from me! I just want to commentate the fast cars. And we're looking at J-Man currently. All these drivers out on their outlap. Now this is a very small track, and we've seen in Split Yellow, it was very packed, very compact indeed, as we had a lot of cars out for qualifying. I think there was almost 40 drivers for Split Yellow. Absolutely insane stuff. But it looks like here this field's a bit more spread out. There's still a couple guys in pit lane, perhaps letting the guys go ahead and giving themselves nice big gaps. But J-Mac is going to be hoping that all these guys get out of there soon, as he's on the back straight. Around turn 12 he goes, and he will be setting up for his first flyer, closely followed by Glory Babby.
Now we'll have to see if they give each other room, because this is just the out lap, and once you're on a valid lap, there's no overtaking unless the other person has a small incident, messes up. And that's just to keep, you know, for a clean quality. Now, J-Mags in the beautiful, beautiful Canon Bentley. God, I love the way the Bentley looks. I just wish it also had the W12 that comes in the standard Bentley, but this one's running a 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which is a similar format to the Aston. Now, as we cross over the finish line, he's on a valid lap now. We're entering turn 1, which I hate. I don't know how to take this correctly. Right into Mercedes Arena, which I hate. I don't know how to take this turn correctly. Now, no, you go ahead, Tim. You take over, because this is not a normally friendly track.
Okay, as he goes on turn 3, tight here, hugging the stripes as he now full on the gas, perhaps a little lift. He did end up having to brake a little bit. Normally you wouldn't brake there, but he goes around through turn 5 now down this straight up. I don't know the name of it, as he goes around to turn 6. Want to keep it tight and give yourself a wide entry into for the curve, turn 7. Not a wide entry, apologies, but around turn 7 he goes, and now he's going down another straight towards turn 8. That's the Dunlop curve. Yep, the Dunlop curve, and now you want to again hug the stripes and get a fast exit out of there. Now he goes towards the Schumacher S's. Now this is full commitment. Perhaps he's going to do a little lift here, and he does. In fact, he touches the brakes a little bit. This is very interesting, but he goes back on the gas, and now he's gonna get ready for turn 6. Brakes here, and you want to take this one a bit tight. Goes a bit wide there. In fact, he has to correct his steering a bit, so it's got a bit slidey there as he goes around turn 12, and now down the back straight he goes around what they call turn 13, but it's pretty much straight. It's flat, but you could call that a corner.
It's the Kyalami kick.
It's a little kick as he now goes through the silly chicane, as everyone likes to call it, and now he goes towards the Coca-Cola curve. Unfortunately, we're not going to see these drivers take a right onto the Nordschleifer. They're going to go back around the GP track through the Coca-Cola curve. He goes now early on the gas, 4th, 5th, and it's going to be a 154.5 banker lap for J-Mags, and Glory Babby instantly already in the 53s with a 53.8. He is not messing around. There are cars coming out of the pit lane now, and this is going to impede Glory Babby, unfortunately, and he's going to have to set up for another one. Perhaps, maybe that car managed to get out the way, but now we're back with Giacomin as he goes around the final corner now, and let's see what kind of times Giacomin will set as his first banker of his first banker, as he also sets a 154.5, but unfortunately for Giacomin, that will be invalid, so he will have to go around one more time, as we're now back with Glory Babby, and he has found time around for the curve. He's now almost 3/10 up He's 2.5 tenths up as he goes down towards Dunlop once again, and let's see if he manages to find more time there, as he's lost a bit on the exit of Ford, but he does find time on entry of Dunlop, and in fact he finds a lot of time on exit. He's almost 3 tenths up once more as he now goes towards the Schumacher S's, eats the curb and really early on the gas, and in fact he's found a lot of time there, but does end up losing a bit. You do not want to hit the sand there as he now goes around through turn 11, and it eats that inside curve, and now around turn 12 he goes through the back straight, and he looks like, yep, he does gain again a bit more time, and let's see what he can do at the chicane, as this is another long crucial straight to get right, and the chicane is another balls to the walls chicane. You really want to eat the inside. In the 4 you can eat it and it will take it really easy. He goes very wide there. That's very much an esports line, but Mags as well, also 4 tenths up. He's going to be, I reckon, a 54.1. Yep, that's a 54.155 for J Mags, and Glory Babby now in the 53.4. He's under a 53.5. So Glory Babby, the weather not bothering him at all. It's just Loki just setting insanely fast laps as we're now with J-Rad. J-Rad just missed out on his first OOR win last week, and he's going to set a 54.6, so he also is absolutely flying out there, as we're not looking at Mateen. Mateen currently sitting in P5 with a 54.8, but he's over half a second up. In fact, he might find 6 tenths there. If I knew, he's only at the start of the track as well, so wait, no, never mind, ignore what I've been saying. He's on the back straight now, he's about to go through the chicane, and he does go through the chicane now. The McLaren not very good with these inside sausage curves, but he does find more time there around the Coca-Cola curve. He goes, loses a bit on entry, but seems to be pretty much equal on exit, and this is going to be another low 54, and that's going to be a 54.3, which puts him provisionally in P3 for Mateen.
Well, take a breather. I'll take over from here. This is Thircolini, Damiano, as we all know him, going through Schumacher S's into Schumacher S's. Go back. You do it again. No, I'm just kidding. Now
I can if you want.
Another 54, a few tenths. Now the thing is, with Glory Babby, we saw as he was going through the tracks, he was losing some time and gaining some time, losing some time here, gaining some time there. So that means in a perfect world with a perfect lap, Glory could have found a lot more time, and that's already quite crazy to think about when he's doing a 53.4 on board with Dave Barker in the Ferrari. Very bad at taking curves, so I'm gonna have to see how this car handles the chicane, because for the bigger cars, the Bentley, the Mustang, maybe the Beamer, you can really tackle the chicane much more aggressive in those cars. But for the mid-engine cars such as the McLaren, the Lambo, the Ferrari, Porsche as well, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, that's a possible 53, but that's definitely a very low 54. He bleeds some time on the exit by getting a faster entry. Now that's a 54 flat, not a 54.1, but that's still a very, very good, puts him on P2. Now Mags still hasn't set a better lap than his best. Giacomin, half a second, that's already a 54 flat, and this is just still the start of the track. We're about to head into the Ford curve. We'll have to see how well his Delta maintains. He's still gaining on the exit. We're heading into Dunlop now. He's 8 tenths up before Dunlop. That must have mean all the other tracks, he must have had a bad Sector 1. We'll have to see how his Sector 2 and Sector 3 goes, but this is a possibility to rival, that's over a second already in just green Delta, has a possibility to rival Glory Babby's time, because these top dogs, Babby, Barker, Mags, the pro class, their skills very, very close, but they're just driving different machines, and they have to just, every car has its pros and cons, as Mags is actually right behind Giacomin.
Giacomin actually seems like he's struggled to put a lap together. He's still not on a valid, he still hasn't put down a valid lap, so let's hope this one's going to be valid, because he won't get too many more attempts after this one. And in fact, look at his Delta going up, so I think actually what's happening here is that we're getting Kunos, because apparently he's 2 seconds up, so he's about to do a 52.5, which would be absolutely insane in these temperatures. So I think it's just Kunos Delta being Kunos Delta, and in fact it is a 54.1. Good enough to put himself in P4. Just just behind J-Mags. I think for a moment there he was P3, but looks like J-Mags has managed to find some time, and he does have a lot of times left in T1. And let's see what he can
500.
do with a big Bentley, as we're now back with Barker currently not up on time. He'll get a couple more attempts at this. If everything goes right, 2 minutes to go. He has a couple more attempts. If he takes the next 2 attempts, who knows? He's currently sitting in P2. I wouldn't say he's comfortable yet because Mags is only 1 tenth behind. Not even a tenth behind him. It's like, what, 4 100ths behind Barker, so he's still got his work cut out for him. Barker's going on one bigger gap than this. We've seen J-Max fly in the past.
Well, gain time, lose time in Mercedes Arena, which is such a fickle lady.
That's probably the trickiest part of that track. It's hard to get it right, and because it's so slow speed, if you get the exit wrong, you just lose so much time. But now we're looking at Giacomo, and he does find a bit of time, not massive amount, but as I say that, he's just found basically 2 tenths out of there, as he now goes through turn 11 and 12 and still finds more time there. If he keeps it this way, he'll put himself in the 53s as well. But he does lose time at the exit of T12. It now goes down the back straight and into the chicane. And I've seen those Ferraris get a bit wonky around the chicane. As you can see, he's staying well clear of the inside of that curve. The inside has this raised bit, which is like a sausage trim. In fact, he abandons this lap, but he's got to be careful because Mags himself is on that lap as well. And I'm wondering if Mags actually had to check up there because he does seem to have lost time. So still currently in P2 as we're now back with Hislop, currently at 54.7. I know Hislop can do better than this, but he's 1.5 tenths up. In fact, he's going to find perhaps 2 tenths on the exit of this. We'll see. And he does manage just under 2 tenths at the exit of the Dunlop curve. But he still has half a lap to go, as it looks like Glory Babby has abandoned his lap.
Now as
well,
well,
on board with Hislop.
There's traction in front of his traffic in front of Hislop as well, which may deter him from fully sending it.
Oh, you can't fully send it, especially if the car in front of you is, in fact, look, he's gone way down on the delta there. So unfortunately for John Hislop, unless there's some kind of miracle through the chicane and the final corner, that's pretty much qualifying over for him. One person, however, that still got a lot of time to find is Giacomo. He was 2 tenths up, but as we speak about him, he goes around the Dunlop curve and loses all that hard work he's put in. So now he's pretty much equal on his last time, but so doesn't improve. But again, for Schumacher S's, he again finds 2 tenths. So he's finding times. He's finding a lot of time around the track, but he keeps losing it at specific corners and then finding it again. So it's not ideal for him. But if he just puts him up to grid, if he keeps it like this, in fact, he will get provisional P2. In fact, he will get P2 overall, I think, as J-Mags has decided that's enough qualifying and has gone back to pits. Barker, unsure where he's at right now, but Giacomo, unfortunately, is getting stuck in traffic. In fact, the McLaren gets out of the way for him, gets onto the grass, and he finds 4 tenths for the final corner, but now he's going to use the slipstream of that McLaren to perhaps find more time, but he does lose a bit, but that's good enough for P2 with a 53.8 from Giacomo. Takes it out the bag on the very final lap, and even then, that was not the perfect lap from Giacomo. As we saw him, he did lose time, as we're now looking at Brock Godfrey, currently on a 54.6 current best, as he goes around the chicane, currently down on the delta, but he still has 1 more corner to go, as he goes around the Coca-Cola, and he spins on the Coca-Cola curve. That is unfortunate for Brock Godfrey, but that's still P8 for the 211 interesting liveried McLaren, so I don't think he'd be too upset about that one.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't think we're looking at Brock Godfrey. I think Brock Godfrey is looking at us.
Yeah, I do not enjoy looking at that livery. See, that Penrite livery on that Ford, that is beautiful. That Cannon livery on the Bentley, the 2 big cars on the grid. Absolutely lovely, lovely liveries. And then the beautiful Porsche behind the Bentley as well.
I'm a big fan of that Bentley. It's shiny, you know. I like shiny things. Now the Porsche as well, very nice because it's Japanese inspired. Those are cherry blossom trees, also known as sakura trees. His wheels are having a little dance. They're ready to race. You know, the Porsche is ready to be unleashed.
It's his secret warm-up procedure. He rubs the wheel on the tarmac just so he can get optimum tire
Warm-up,
temperature
yeah.
from lap 1. And as
Yeah, he
you
also
see,
gets a
that's
flat spot.
That McLaren,
No,
it doesn't
no,
matter what
left.
angle you look at it.
Don't.
It just looks at you. I don't like it. Get it away from me.
Hey guys, what are you doing out here?
Yeah, it's just it's like that one kid, you know. And yeah, we've got Porsches. The only rear-engine GT3. We've got a Beamer, which is a surprising. You know, the BMW M4. It's a great car. Not many people drive it in ACC. Unfortunately, we've got the Intel Lambo. We've got the McLaren. Now, Sean has said that is his favorite livery. I think from Spa. Very clean.
It's either the Intel Lambo or the Canon Bandy. He's a big enjoyer of that Canon livery. We have I think that's Apex Racing Ferrari to our left. That's
yes, very
another
much so.
absolutely beautiful one. These livery creators, they can just put out some bangers, and there's the McLaren as well. I really like those McLarens. There's 2 of them on the grid. Absolutely beautiful stuff from these guys.
Yeah, well, a lot of these liveries. Oh yeah, sorry. You go ahead.
I think we have an anime livery of Blake Griffiths on the left. That's very flashy. I like these liveries in split green. They're very well. Most of them are appealing to my eyes. We do not talk about the 211 McLaren.
There's a bit of everything. You've got the professional liveries. You've got the proper racing liveries. You've got more of the plain liveries. Some of the flashy liveries. This blue McLaren with the Red Bull, you know, paid actor for giving Giacomin a slipstream right on the final corner. But,
paid actor. It's the sugar-free Red Bull. That's why.
Sugar-free? That's like a vegan hamburger.
Hey, we do not judge here. Some people like sugar-free drinks, and I respect them for that. As Glory Baby leads us off to the formation lap. Now, we've seen lap 1 be a bit of a disaster in split yellow. Let's see if split green can keep it together as the drivers now go out for their formation lap. And now predictions, John's prediction. Oh God, predictions. What do you reckon is going to happen? Turn 1 of this track. It's very notorious for incidents. But do you think split green can keep it clean for us today?
Unfortunately, I don't. And I'm not saying that because anybody's going to be a bit too aggressive. I'm saying that because eventually there's going to be one guy who gets a little bit too close for comfort, and then he has to break that extra bit, and that's going to cause the guy behind him to check up. And that's going to cause the guy behind him to check up. Oh my God, it's another 1996 Cherokee X-J as we're rounding out on the formation lap. Now, that's what I truly think that's going to happen because of how wide T1 is, how high speed you go into it. Like, just in general, not just on the formation lap. It's just everybody's itching to get positions. Holy crap, it's driving off now.
That's a track hazard.
That's a track hazard. Wait, is that the safety car? That's got to be the safety car for this.
If we come back from T1, actually, if anybody's watched the walkthrough, when they get off the start-finish line, it's very easy to go 3 wide, even 4 wide. But actually, right before T1, the track narrows pretty aggressively, and that's, I think, one of the reasons you might see cars, especially on the inside, get into incidents because they end up on the grass because you think you have track, and it's blind, it's over a crest, you don't see it, and especially now, it's 7 p.m. in Germany, the sun's in your face, you need a tinted visor, so you don't see the track, and all of a sudden, oh no! It doesn't seem like I'm on the tarmac anymore. I seem like I'm on the grass, and then you press on the brakes, your inside tires lock up, and you end up spitting, and at this point, you're only a passenger, you're a bowling ball, and you end up taking out people without intent. But that's why sometimes learning these tracks and the quirks of these tracks is so important, because this is one of the reasons why you see so many incidents on this particular racetrack. It's because it narrows in just before turn 1, and I did not even think of that before I watched the walkthrough with our lovely JC, and he's taught us a lot about racecraft. I drive in sprint, but I still always learn from these walkthroughs, so it's always good to see as we now have our drivers going 2x2 around the Coca-Cola curve. I wish they turned left, but unfortunately we're turning right today, and we're staying on the GP track as we have Glory Babby leading the pack as we're anticipating the green lights, and they should turn green any moment now as all the drivers are now lined up in the start-finish straight as we are now green for round 3 of split green as we already have some already bit of contact there on the second row of the grid, and Turcolini looking like he tried to make it 3 wide, but so far so good for these drivers. I love them at the back. Have to check up. There's a bit of argy-bargy, a little bit of contact, a big contact at the back. But
some bip bop.
You know what? I will take it. That was actually a pretty good start from Split Green. No safety car. That was very good. Now let's see if they can keep it like this through Mercedes Arena because they're not clear yet. They're still 2 wide, 3 wide at the back as they're exiting Mercedes Arena. Now they're going to go side by side towards turn 11 as we're now on board with Damiano Turcolini. We saw Turcolini into a bit of contact, was very eager to make it 3 wide there, but unfortunately even in the Porsche there was not quite enough space for him, so he had to back out a little bit as we're now looking at the back of Glory Babby. Glory Babby with a fantastic start, now leading the pack, but under pressure from Barker already. So Glory Babby, what he will want to do now is just build that gap and build himself a bit of that buffer zone and let the cars at the back. And did I say Glory Babby was leading? Did I take that back? It was Giacomin with the lead. So Giacomin managing to take the lead from Glory Babby. Apologies from my mistake as Glory Babby goes very wide there. Now Giacomin is going to want to try and build a gap with Glory Babby. Easier said than done. But so far so good for Split Green. That was a fantastic start from them.
Yeah, I'm really glad that nobody went too much far on the inside, because as you were saying, if any of those wheels, even a little bit, were on the grass, they become a bowling ball. And bowling ball on the outside of T1, not really a problem. Bowling ball on the inside, you got a problem. Now, this, I kind of feel sorry for Barker, because he's in the Ferrari, which means he has to avoid those death curbs of the RNG silly chicken. Now, Mags and Mags and Babby don't have to do that. They're in both big cars. They can just go straight through. Sorry, I meant to say Giacomin has to watch out for Babby and Barker has to watch out for Mags because it's just anti-curb machines. We're going back through T1. And McLaren's getting real close. Mateen's getting real close to Turcolini. Now, Mercedes Arena, this is such a slow, slippery part of the track. Ooh, let's hope that was not a
that was off track.
Yeah.
That was definitely a track cut. So the track limits there are that red and white curbing, and if you go beyond those, that is unfortunately off track. And it's very easy to do that. If you want to on the gas so early, but if you go on the gas too early, the cars aren't going wide. So these guys I want to be careful about that. But Damiano under a lot of pressure from Mateen, and now we're back on the court with Glory Babby hunting down the Ferrari of Giacomin. The Ford, unfortunately, with the restrictor, lost a bit of top speed. It's mitigated by getting negative 19 kilos of that. So it's actually a very, very nimble car here now. And even then, it's still pretty quick down the straight. So if you can take the stream of that Ferrari and somehow find a place to make a move, we see Giacomin drive for. He's a very, very, very good driver. He knows where to place his car, especially. The size. We get a replay from the start now. We see how Giacomin managed to get around Glory Babby. Yeah, they are side by side for T1.
No, just around the outside.
Outside for T1, but also means he gets the inside from turn 2, and that's just moves on right there.
Yeah.
Good and early. That's actually a very important move for Giacomin. Just get around the Ford as quick as possible and make it hard for them to get around you, as they're now starting to build a gap to the car behind. In fact, Giacomin's starting to build a bit of a gap to the number 47 Ford here, so he's absolutely starting to fly now as we're back on board with Turcolini, still with that McLaren behind him. As we see another McLaren looking down the inside, I wonder if there's another battle going on behind the McLaren of Mateen, and in fact, I think there was as Godfrey gets around the Porsche of Danny Voot.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the thing, Babby. With Giacomin trying to defend so hard, you have to also worry about using too much of your tires too early on, because this is a 45-minute race with no mandatory pits, no tire swaps, unless you just want to pit, I guess. But there's a real risk of shredding your tires early and then that making you lose pace later on. And I've just with the Ford and apparently the Bentley too, if you really push on the cold tires, it really degrades them quite early on. Now I'm not sure what kind of tire wear the Porsche or the Ferraris have in terms of just overall driving through the track, because the ambient temperature for this race is 24 Celsius, which is healthy. It's not too cold, it's not too hot.
Yeah, it could be more ideal. Well, 24 is not happy days. I know a lot of these sweaty drivers, they want 15, 18, 17 degrees. That's when they're like, yeah, I can drive fast. But with 24, it's a different story. And not the end of the world. It won't start completely shredding your tires. That territory is about 28, 30s. I'm not an expert when it comes to this. You have to ask some of the more experienced guys, but I think around 28, 30s. I remember I think it was Barcelona a few seasons back. I think I was still a rookie back then. Time flies. Time really does fly when you're having fun at OR. But I think they had a bit of fun. I think they had like 30-degree weather or something, and it was without a pit stop. So I can't imagine how their tires end up being like at the end of that race as Giacomin again sets the fastest lap. In fact, at 54.1 on race runs, we have a replay of Termini just looking down the inside. Unfortunately, not quite enough space even for a Porsche. You know, it's a small race car, but it's not that small. As we're back on board with Mateen, and now Mateen perhaps going to be under pressure from the other McLaren of Brock Godfrey. That's always looking at him. So, wondering if he's still on the rear bumper of Turcolini. So we have an interesting battle here starting to form as we have a train of 6 cars looking to battle. If Mateen does have a bit more of a gap to Godfrey than Godfrey does to the cars behind him, but this could shape up to be very interesting here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Brock's car, is that it's a face. That should be classed as psychological warfare, and especially the tag on the front left of the car also says God, implies that's the face of God. You just don't want to think about that as you're driving, especially when it's right up against you. And what was I going to say? Yeah, back to Turcolini in the Porsche. The things about Porsche... The thing about Porsche...
God, you see, it is God. He rules us all. We can't stay away from him.
The thing about Porsches is that they're such small cars. It's whenever they see a gap, it's more of a could I fit in there instead of a should I fit in there. And no, you should not.
Small car gets insane launches off the start. Like everyone just likes to make fun of the Porsche. Haha, it's not the fastest down the straight. Until you realize it's got fantastic brakes and off the line, out of corners. It is an absolute rocket in the bottom end as really Max goes a bit wide there onto the grass, but does manage to keep it under control. In fact, I think he did manage to keep it within track limits there. In fact, maybe he might be starting to catch Barker as we again have that battle between that Porsche and that McLaren. And that McLaren, you know, he's struggling to catch Turcolini. He's not really catching him. He's catching him a bit, but not quite enough to make a send. And Turcolini just placing his car in the perfect position just to make it pretty much impossible to get around. What the McLaren's gonna need is Turcolini to make a mistake, and Turcolini's got a lot of experience here at OR, so he's definitely not gonna make it easy for the McLaren. So it's gonna take a lot more than that for Mateen to get around that Porsche.
If the curse of the Porsche strikes again, and what I'm talking about when I say the curse of the Porsche, because the Porsche is rear-engined, it's not mid-engine, it's rear-engine, it's at the back of the car. That means the fuel tank is in the front of the car, which, at the beginning of every race, means the car is very well-balanced, handles very nicely. But towards the end, the fuel tank, less and less fuel, front end gets lighter, and there's a propensity for oversteer. No understeer, just oversteer. Is that correct? Because I remember you took the Porsche for a few races as well. I've never touched the Porsche.
Very much correct. On a full tank, it is... I want to say pile of dong. Let's use pile of dong. It's not a pile of dong. It's still a fantastic car, but when you're on full fuel, it's not a fun experience at the start of a race. At least for me, it wasn't. That towards the end, when your fuel tank's pretty much empty, you're fighting for dear life to keep.
There's no more tires left. You know, traction's optional.
It's the only car I've driven where my quali setup and my race setup are completely different. all my other cars, and little tweaks here and there. Nothing major. With the Porsche, it's a completely different setup because you want to set it up so it drives well on full fuel, and at the same time it doesn't kill you at the end of the race. Especially you've got to deal with an empty fuel tank, which makes the rear more oversteery, and dead tires as well. It takes a lot of skill. It's a lot of fun to drive, but it takes a lot of skill to drive fast, as we're now back on our Glory Babby, and looks like he has managed to slowly catch up Giacomin, and he does currently hold the fastest lap, so wondering if now he's starting to get on the gas a little bit. You know, we've done our first few laps, we've built a gap to the guys behind. Yeah, tires are warmed up, the guys behind are not a threat anymore. Can I start spending it?
Can I start pressuring Giacomin into making a mistake, applying mental pressure, or should I just physically drive through the chicane like a rocket? Because Giacomin, that Ferrari can't take the same lines the Mustang can. And that is a massive advantage for Babby, because Giacomin's going to have to avoid the curbs, he's going to do this, do that. But the tough part is Nurburgring, it's a very corner-heavy track as well, so the Ferrari is in no terms weak at this track. That's what I mean when we were talking earlier. This track has a good balance. There's high speed, there's low speed, there's tough corners, there's long straights. You know, there's plenty of places for the Mustang to stretch its legs. Unfortunately restricted now, but all in all, it made it a faster car. Because if I remember correctly, with the new LFM laps, the Mustang is 0.3 faster than every other car.
Apparently so, according to Lucas Keys. It's 0.3 faster, and that makes it the best car. But you know, being fast over a lap doesn't matter, because as you can see, although the Mustang is quote-unquote 0.3 faster, he's not catching the Ferrari. And yeah, Glory Babby is no slouch when it comes to driving. He's one of the faster drivers out there. Being fast over a lap is one thing, but if it was the old Mustang, I reckon he could have gone them down the straight. But the fact that although it's restricted and now it's better on the corners, it makes it harder for the Mustang to get around anyways, because getting around in the corners is much harder than obviously just sending it down the straight. Look at me, I'm a Mustang, I'm 5 kilometers an hour faster than you, and whatever. Now they've got to actually put work into their overtakes and actually do it like every other car that's around a corner. And even then, the Mustang is still insanely quick down the straight. Even at Silverstone with the restrictor, it was still catching a couple cars out. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're at the Nurburgring. We go for the Schumacher S's. This is where the Ferrari would probably be a bit better than the Mustang. It's still, you know, even with the minus negative 19 kilos, it's still a big, heavy car. But one thing about the Mustang, if you're driving that Ferrari ahead and you have your rear view mirror and you tend to look at it a lot, like some people do, looking at myself, seeing that car behind you, there's, for me at least, there's fear. It's a scary car to have behind. It's just an intimidating car. It's big, it's got these little red running lights on it. It just looks angry. And I don't feel comfortable having a car like this behind me, especially driving a little Ferrari. So let's see how Giacomin does. He probably handles it a lot better than me. There's a reason why he's a pro and I'm not. But he handles it a lot better than I would, as we have a replay now of Barker. Now let's see what happens. He looks like he's heading towards the chicane. And let's see what happens. And yep, he gets absolutely Ferrari. That's exactly what we were talking about before. The Ferrari cannot take that inside curb like, let's say, the Bentley or the Mustang. If that Ferrari touches that curb, it gets sent to space. And in fact, he's very lucky to have managed to recover from that and has only lost 1 position from it. It could have gone a lot worse for Barker.
Yeah, we all know how ACC does its thing sometimes with the physics. But it was really lucky for Barker, because even with the bounces, it landed on the grass. You got no traction on the grass, but he still managed to keep it straight, correct it, and bring it back onto the track. Because you end up on the grass, it's a really high chance of just spinning out completely, ending in the wall, or at least losing way more positions than Barker did, because he only lost 1. Now he has to fight with Thircolini. Now, there is a 1 second gap between Thircolini and Barker. Now it's down to 7/10. But it seems like Glory Babby and Giacomin have really cleared themselves out from the rest of the pack at the moment, because 7 seconds down is Mags, Barker, Thurcolini. Mateen has lost some time to Thurcolini. Brock, I just don't want to mention the name just in case, you know. But Brock is also doing very well in P7. We've got J-Rad, the almost chosen one of Spa last race. We've got Danny Vu and John Hislop.
An absolute heartbreak, that race.
It was.
As we're now looking at, I think, as a portion of Danny Vu and Gerard making a send down the inside, and
Wow.
took the opportunity, but there's a bit of contact there. But apart from that, that was a very clean overtake. Looks like maybe Danny Vu made a mistake in the braking. I'm not sure what happened, but that was a very, very clean overtake from John Rad. With Rad Racing. That's rad, bruh. As they go around the Coca-Cola curve, and let's see if Danny Vu has a response to that. But Danny Vu also has the Porsche of John Hislop behind him. But I know these two are good friends, but I'm wondering if how they're gonna race together. Danny Vu, one of the nicest guys I know. He's an absolute gentleman. He's his current brother, Dennis Vu, for the rookies now. But he's an absolute gentleman. If you've never had it looks like it gave him the spot. You see what I mean? Other drivers wouldn't have made it so easy, but these two are friends. They're probably talking to each other on TeamSpeak or something, and Danny's seeing his love. You know, oh, you're faster. You know what? Take the spot. You're my friend. Have it. This is exactly what I mean about Danny. He's an absolute gentleman, but I don't think he'd be quite as nice with other drivers on the track. But as we can see with John Hislop, he just straight up gave him the position.
Two things to say. One, you're a Porsche driver? I'm a Porsche driver. We gotta help each other out, eh? And second thing to say, I just want to see the team name for John Hislop is also not very friendly. You know, Bloodsport. That's... because he's a very good driver.
I'm pretty sure that's a CSGO skin.
Yeah, Bloodsport, wasn't it for the M4?
It's something like that. Don't mention the name, but I think he has a stat track on the side of the car, so he has perhaps a stat track for overtakes, podiums, and he does get a bit of a slide there. And looks like Alistair McLeod gets a 5-second penalty for dangerous driving on lap 7. McLeod not having the best of luck. He did not have a great spot either. Getting to some incidents there.
Start as well. He did get a 5-second penalty for jumping the start, a small 5-second penalty for dangerous driving. Now we've got Tarab Bank, 15 seconds. I think that's for causing a collision on lap 2. We saw that earlier. And we've got Robert Underwood with 5 seconds. I'm not sure what that's for, but we've got the 5-second penalties for slight collisions or dangerous driving. Now, that sort of slight collision, it's a tap, where I don't think that you make the other car deviate too much. For the more heavy collisions, it's when you hit them and they lose a bit of speed, they lose some corner, you make them go wide, that's 10 seconds. You spin them, I think that's 15 or more. That's completely up to the discretion of the stewards, because they have the time to go through and analyze every scenario, and we have to believe in them that they'll uphold the sort of honor and the sort of calculated thinking that's necessary to make sure everybody gets a fair penalty, or just determining if it's just a race incident.
Talking about it, yeah, he does have a stat tracker, and unfortunately it's on 0. It should not be on 0. This is we're looking at our what track was it?
We have Silverstone, we had
our Zolder Enduro winner. That number should at least be a 1 for John Hislop, so he needs to get that updated, but he does have a stat track on that car, so, but it's an absolute beautiful livery on that lovely 992 Porsche, as we're now back with Glory Babby. In fact, he's not really gaining much ground. I'm wondering if he's waiting, or just Giacomin just has the better overall pace. So it's possible Giacomin is a fast driver. Perhaps Glory Babby is just following him. Perhaps he's going to get a
bit of slide.
Too much curbs and gets a bit too much slide. So yes, we did talk to Ford can take the curb.
Yeah,
but it's not invincible. It's not a get out of jail free card. As we're now back on board with Damiano, and looks like he has managed to build a 1-second gap to Mateen. So he's got a bit of breathing room behind him now, and he's now hunting down the Ferrari of Barker. At least I think he's managed to build a bit of breathing room, if I'm looking at the Delta correctly. And yes, he does indeed have built a bit of breathing room behind Mateen, but Mateen's still in the background, so now he's going to have to look to try and get around Barker. Wonder if Barker is still a bit shaken up for his little incident at the chicane, but he seems to be driving just fine at the moment, as it looks like we do have some kind of incident around at the chicane, as there is a yellow flag currently for the number 380. That will be I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that. That's the 380 McLaren. As oh boy, you guys are going to get to see the incident fairly soon, as our lovely broadcaster Benjamin Higdon is finding it for us, and we do have it's that Red Bull McLaren that we were talking about.
Sugar free.
Sugar free, as they do get up. Oh,
that's a hardware failure.
Yeah, that looks like
That's hardware.
full-on. Yeah, he's still turning full, right? It looks like. Yeah, it looks like he has a full-on hardware failure, so that wasn't of his own doing. And unfortunately, that is pretty much race over for. Can you pronounce the name for me, John?
Mahaswara?
Thank
That's just
you.
a guess.
That is.
I just hope that's correct.
It sounds like you're pronouncing it somewhat right. I think I would butcher it a lot more. But that's pretty much race over, as they do go back to pits now. That is unfortunate. Hardware failures do tend to happen. It's happened to me in the past. It happens to a lot of drivers.
Yeah,
That's something out of your own control, unfortunately.
Chalk it up to immersion, because you do have mechanical failures during actual races as well, whether
Yeah,
you like
let's
it or
just
not.
say a mechanical failure. His engine blew up. His suspension blew up.
Tripped. Yeah, it's just one of
His
the
steering
turbos
wheel
decided
fell
to eat
off.
a bird. You know,
His steering wheel fell off.
my quick release steering wheel quickly
as,
released on track.
As we're back with Barker, and he's still under a lot of pressure from Turcolini. Now, wondering if Turcolini is going to try and make a move. There is still 23 minutes left to go in this race. God, that's been so quick. But I say that it's actually not even halfway through. It's only a 45-minute race. That's a very short race for a one race, not a super sprint. God, what am I trying to say here? But Barker, I'm trying to say something. You're correct about that. But Barker here, doing his best, holding off that Porsche of Turcolini, and Mateen that's now 1.5 out. So he's just losing a tiny bit of time from Turcolini. That's exactly what Turcolini needs to be able to try and make a move, as we're back to that battle up front. And in fact, Giacomin has managed to put the gap. That gap is almost 1 minute. So Giacomin absolutely flying in the race. So no, I want to say not the best quali, but he ended up being P2, so he did have a fantastic quali.
It was just a really clean overtake into T1, because you just place yourself correctly. It was, you got to go slow through T1. Nobody's going fast through T1. And he just got in front of Babby just at the right time, sort of forcing him off of his line, and then just securing first place. Now, that is first turn, first lap, so if he can manage to hold that on, that would be a very, very good performance from him. And that's a possible thermal overtake, just for how clean and technical it was. It wasn't anything like, super flashy or anything, but he didn't really endanger Babby as well. It was just putting the car in the right place at the right time.
We're now on board with John Hislop, hunting down the orange McLaren of John Rad, with Radbra Racing.
Adelaide. I don't know if he's from Adelaide or not, guys.
But now John Hislop now in the slipstream. Looks like Brad did bottom out his McLaren there at the chicane, and that just gives John Hislop. He's very close to a McLaren. In fact, it looks like he had a much better run down the straight there, because that Porsche was absolutely catching that McLaren. He's now right on his rear bumper, and now this is where the Porsche would probably be a lot stronger than the McLaren, as in these slow technical sections. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is exactly where the Porsche likes to shine. But the McLaren's also pretty good here. In fact, does manage to get a bit further away from the Porsche, but nothing too dramatic. Hislop's still 4/10 behind, just under.
Really pushing the car, and Hislop just doesn't want to push his Porsche as much as well, because, as we were talking about earlier, the fuel level, the balance of the car, and just the shredding of the tires, maybe Hislop is preparing for that last burst of speed that he can bring out in the Porsche with still some fresh tires.
Yeah, we'll have to see, as he still is right on the rear bumper of the McLaren. What he needs is that McLaren to do another mistake like that, and He'll probably.
That's a little.
He makes a mistake himself
oversteer.
and almost gets. See, that's just Porsche things right there. It's good, but if you just do a little mistake, it does punish you a lot more than other cars.
Like
he
that.
goes full on
Keep it on,
drift
keep it
again.
on. Thank God he corrected it in time, and he's still facing the right direction. Now you lost a lot of time from that, and your rear tires are probably not feeling very healthy. But that's what we were talking about, just the balance of the Porsche. And the farther you go on, the sharper it gets, but just the more dangerous it gets too. As we're on board with the replay, you can see his wheels locked to the right, just trying to get it back.
Seemed very calm, not panicking. Hislop is a very calm driver after all. Very, very nice guy. Very, very nice guy, actually. Although he does like to pot stir a bit. He's just a very quiet pot stirrer, but he's a lovely, lovely bloke to hang around with. And I get to talk to him almost every day, so I feel honored with that, as we're now on board with Jared Matterford, currently sitting in P14, hunting down the 131 of Underwood, currently with a 15-second penalty. And he's going to look down the inside, but does he have the overlap? And he does think about it, but he pulls out of it. And now he's going to have to be careful, because there is the Ferrari of Nor Reinhardt behind him. So he's going to have to be careful about this. He doesn't want to be too aggressive and lose a lot of time, because if he does give the opportunity to the Ferrari behind him, now he's going to be the one getting hunted for a position instead of being the hunter for the position. I think I used the wrong words for that, but English is
it right. Well, it's your third language, and English is my second. English is my second language. We're good. Now I just want to say, Mahaswara, number 380 McLaren, who had the hardware failure, is back on track, so he's still trying to finish the race. Good going, just keep it in, get some points. But that also brings into question. Oh, whoa. Sorry, Matterford's really close behind Robert right now. And he's just trying to see, poke and prod, see where Underwood is going to leave a gap, trying to just pressure him. They're both on the curb through Schumacher S's, and they're coming in. No snap oversteer, a bit of sand from the Ferrari behind. We'll have to see as they come into this next curve. No, we're good. So far, so good. This is the exact curve that Hislop almost lost it right there. And Matterford, bit of a bad exit, trying to look down the inside as we're heading up this little kink. It's not a turn, it's a kink, it's a bend. Let's be honest. Now the silly chicken. Silly chicken. Let's see what happens here. What will the Beamer do? What will the McLaren do? They survive, I say with a question mark, because you never know. Now it looks like Matterford just gave a bit more of a gap to Underwood, just trying to stay safe, I guess.
The slipstream down the main straight.
Right down the main straight.
Talking about Mahaswara, there is a new rule getting in place by our race organizers. Is you have to finish 75% of the race distance to get your results valid for the race. If you do not finish 75% of the race distance, 75% of the race distance from P1, your results aren't valid. So let's say theoretically you're P2 for some reason, somehow, and you don't finish 75% of the race distance.
From Babby, sorry.
Yeah, Babby seems to be absolutely pushing. It seems to be struggling to catch Giacomin here. Giacomin doing everything right to stay ahead as well. Giacomin just looking like not doing very much mistakes, very much more planted than the Ford of Babby. So there's only 16 minutes left to go, so what Babby needs to hope is for Giacomin to make a mistake of his own. But so far it's looking like it's not to happen for the white Ferrari, as that battle just seems to just keep going on as he eats a lot of curb there, but the Ford, being the Ford, just seems to just eat those for breakfast. As wow,
that is a lot of time.
It looks like Giacomin did end up making a bit of a mistake around the Coca-Cola curve, and that's exactly what Babby needs to get around. But he goes defensive, goes around the inside.
They're side by side.
Babby's going to
give him the room, and Babby doesn't send it. It tries to get a switchback, but into Mercedes Arena, the Ferrari's gonna beat the Mustang here. No shot, But as you can see, Babby's struggling with oversteer, maybe a little understeer as well, but he's still right on the butt of Giacomin.
And Giacomin defended that pretty aggressively, going very deep on the inside, not to not give Babby the inside and force the Babby around the outside. The only problem is if you miss your brake marker down the inside and you do a mistake into turn 1, that leaves turn 2 vulnerable. And if you're on the outside, you end up getting the inside for turn 2. But he's so far so good. He managed to keep it right. He kept it clean. It does go a bit wide there, and it looks like Babby just has the more pace around Dunlop, but it's just not really possible to make a move around the inside here as they go back around the Schumacher S's, and the Mustang just it's really pushing it. In fact, Giacomo almost hits the sand there. It's not quite enough. He's really on the rear bumper. In fact, misses his brake marker a little bit, and that's not what you want to do, Glory Babby. He's really starting to push that forward now. He really wants that position from Giacomo.
He's decided, there's 15 minutes left. If I don't start pushing now, I'll never be able to get him. Back on board, Barker.
These two have a massive gap to the guys behind. Just look on the track map. The closest driver to them is J Mags, and it's halfway through the back straight when they go around the Coca-Cola curve. So they're way ahead of their competitors, really on a league of their own, these two, in split green at least. And in fact, they might end up catching lap traffic, and that would be the number 380 that Red Bull McLaren we were talking about earlier. It's about to get caught by the leaders now. I wonder if that's going to have a say in their current battle for P1.
Now I just want to mention, if you do have any hardware issues and you're looking to upgrade, please kindly go check out Thermaltake. They have wheels, they have rigs, they've got cases, they've got computers, they've got fans, thermodynamically challenged computers, premium cooling, and also if you are part of the patrons of OOR, it's a 10% discount. Is it not, Tim? I just want to double check that with you.
I know that for sim rigs. I'm not sure about Thermaltake actually. I'm not sure if Thermaltake is only for patrons or if it's for everyone. I thought it was for everyone, but I'm not one to say. Perhaps our cameraman knows better than I do. We are checking.
Thank you very much. If there's any lovely people from Thermaltake watching this right now, I personally would like to apologize. I had to stand in for the community Thermaltake fan favorite Sean Muller because he's indisposed today. So I'm just stepping in. I unfortunately did not do as much research, done as much research as I should have.
He's got some daddy duties. So obviously he's got a he's fantastic dad, Sean Muller, spending time with his little man. Fantastic guy to be around with, Sean Muller. He's gone through so much, and just to still have the attitude to keep on going is really a role model, even for me, just to never give up. He's just a fantastic guy to be around, and if you have a chance to have a nice conversation with him, which I have had the pleasure to have with him multiple times now, talking about motorsports. We've watched Le Mans together. We've watched the Spa 24 together. He's so knowledgeable as well. He's a fantastic commentator, very knowledgeable when it comes to GT racing, which is his favorite kind of racing. He's just fantastic bloke to be around. If you get a chance to have a nice conversation with him, he's a fantastic guy.
And you get to watch him race on the GT4s and Porsche Cup cars, because he's a big fan of those. He absolutely loves the Porsche to death. Check the Thermaltake page at the top of the Discord. I will give me one more, Tim. You take the reins. You take the handles.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite of the Porsche Cup. He loves the Porsche Cup. He swears by it. Best car in ACC for him, and I don't blame him. It's a fantastic car to drive. It's amazing fun. No TC. Luckily, you still have ABS, but no TC, so it's a bit of a handful, but it's great fun to drive and race, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. It sounds better than the GT3R that we're seeing these guys drive at the moment, as we're back with that battle for P1, and that battle just keeps... Glory Babby just manages to get close, and once he's really close to Giacomo, he just ends up doing these little mistakes, which allows Giacomo to just start pulling again. He gets a bit closer, does a mistake, Giacomo pulls away, gets a bit closer, and so they're in a bit of a cycle right now, these two. In fact, they've already managed to get around that blue flag traffic. We didn't even see that happen, so it looks like it wasn't too detrimental, and are very aggressive around the chicane, so he's really pushing that forward now, and as they go around Coca-Cola curve, wondering
Once
if he's
again,
going to have
up for the straight.
opportunity here on the start-finish straight, but I don't think the Ford with the restrictor is just close enough. He is 4 tenths behind. That's just not gonna be enough to make a move around the Ferrari. So he's going to have to do that another lap once more. But
Try to
these
get a
two
switch back.
battling the whole race. Absolutely insane stuff.
That's another thing I just wanted to mention. First off, there is a promo code for Thermaltake. God damn it! I already forgot it. Where is it? There it is.
It's
Okay,
in
found
our
it again.
Discord page.
Yes,
and
promo
if you're
code Octane for 10% off practically everything. Glenn's own words at the Thermaltake Australia website.
If it's not everything, you can blame Glenn.
Yeah, blame it on Glenn and have him pay the 10% difference.
Yeah, let's ignore
Or
the fact
free
that Glenn worked so hard behind the scenes. Nobody sees what he
Glenn,
does.
Matt,
He's just very quiet. But our admins are the people that make all of this possible, working so hard behind the scenes. And I cannot put out more of what they're doing, but they've got a lot prepared for us. Health OR Octane Online Racing has a very, very healthy future ahead of it, and I'm very excited to see what the future brings to us for the sim racing community that we have here in the APAC region, as we're back with that battle between John Hislop and John Rad. In fact, John Hislop on the rear bumper of John Rad. Again, that's the same type of battle we're seeing between P1 and P2. He gets close and then he does a little mistake. The guy ahead pulls away and then he manages to catch up again. So it's a bit of a game of catch up for John Hislop and Glory
That's another thing I
Babby.
wanted to mention, because these drivers, especially the pro class, they're so fine-tuned and just so high-skilled. They're used to the car driving a certain way. As we're on board with Glory Babby, right behind Giacomin. He's going to go on the outside once again. Giacomin defends the inside, gets the overlap, but just doesn't get the inside line. They have to go side by side once again. And if Glory doesn't give enough room for Giacomin and there's unhealthy contact, that is an invoice, as he tries to go down the inside and force Giacomin off on the outside. That is a lot of contact. I just can't speak. You're better at this. Giacomin back on the inside, forcing Glory on the outside.
Now this has gone very intense, but Glory Babby manages to take the position from Giacomin, but these guys were fighting tooth and nail there. That was a bit of contact. I'm wondering if it was justifiable contact, or perhaps Giacomin just tried to really squeeze Glory Babby. We saw Glory Babby was in extreme inside of the track, but that's why we have our fantastic steward team, another group of people that we don't see, but they're working so hard behind the scenes, behind the race. They're looking just as hard as we are, and they're looking at these incidents, waiting for these drivers to call their numbers. And if there's an incident, they see who's at fault, or if it was perhaps a racing incident, as we hopefully get a nice replay of this. That was a very, very intense battle through a Mercedes arena, and I'm wondering how Babby managed to set up the straight there as we get a replay, but this replay was from between John Hislop and John Rad. He's in a McLaren bounce there! That was a big bounce on the McLaren, and that's exactly what John Hislop needed to get around. But that was a major mistake here from John Rad, and looks like he's only lost one position from it, but that's exactly not what you want. That McLaren did not take that very kindly, and again, luckily for him, it looks like he's managed to avoid the wall, as we do get a replay of that battle between Glory Babby and Giacomin. So you see Glory Babby on the outside. Now that puts him on the inside for turn 2, but as we see Giacomin really squeezing that forward, and he's still side by side, and he is on the extreme inside of the track. So there is a bit of contact. I'd like to say that's
going back in.
That's an invoice, but that's a job for the steward, because Glory Babby had the right to racing room as well. We'll have to see what happens. There's a reason why I'm a commentator and not a steward, and the reason why we have stewards. It's a specialized group of people. They know what they're doing. They know what they're looking at. They're much more talented at this than I would be. But that was the battle between these two. I'm wondering if there's an invoice for these two, because if Glory Babby does get an invoice, that is
it's going to be heartbreaking, because he's been working this whole time to just set up for that overtake and get that overtake. He's been clawing at that overtake ever since turn 1, lap 1.
looking like he's starting to pull away, and that's exactly what he needs to start doing because there's only 5 minutes of this race to go. I don't think he'll have enough time to. If at the very least, if he does get a penalty, the least he can get is 5 seconds. But even then, trying to find 5 seconds with what is pretty much, I would say, 5 laps to go, it's going to be a challenge, and I don't think he'll manage to do that unless Giacomin does a major mistake and puts him 5 seconds back. But also, if he gets a 15-second invoice, P3 J Mags is only 10 seconds behind if the delta is correct. So he's another driver to watch out for. Really does not want anything more than a 10-second if he does get an invoice. Same goes for Giacomin, because I'm not sure who was at fault there. They were just racing very hard. As we're back on board with Turcolini. It was a hard battle, very exciting.
Very heated, and it had to be cooled off by Thermaltake fans.
As we see Turcolini, unfortunately for Turcolini, Barker does seem to just have pulled away a little bit, so just doesn't quite have the pace to close in on that Ferrari. Gets close here and there, but just not close enough to make an overtake. But they're pretty much, I want to say, well clear of Mateen, but Mateen, since we last talked about this battle, has only lost 5 tenths, so Mateen still very much in this. If these two start battling and making mistakes and could end up in a heartbreak, that's still potential positions for Mateen, so
that's
the best these two can do is perhaps work together.
Yeah, it's this track specifically. There's many tracks that are tough to pass on. We're looking at Donington, Oulton Park, all the other stuff, where most of the moves are made at Mercedes Arena because there's nowhere else to make moves unless somebody else makes a mistake, and you can just capitalize on that and get past and hope they don't take you out if they do make a mistake when you get past. Luckily, there's a lot of runoff for the whole track, so there's like 0 chance they go back onto the racing line unless they just completely spin as Barker on the grass.
Barker on the grass, and that just gives Turcolini just get the opportunity to get a bit closer, but it doesn't look like he hit enough sand, because normally when you hit that sand you lose so much speed.
Yeah, it just sucked you in.
You lose like 5 tenths, something ridiculous. You lose a ridiculous amount of pace when you hit that sand. It's like a break. It's horrible.
The people who designed the Nurburgring, they imported that sand, that quicksand, from action movies.
As you see, Turcolini does get close. He's very close now. In fact, much up the rear bumper at Coca-Cola curve, but they now go back down the hard finish straight. The Porsche much better on exits, but the Ferrari has the better top end. So yeah, you can see that Porsche is just not catching that Ferrari, not enough to make a move. But it does get very close in the braking, so that's just the Porsche brakes for you. Just much better on the braking than the Ferrari. So he catches him a lot in the braking zone just because the Porsche's brakes that much better. But that Ferrari just has that traction as well.
Yeah, the traction on the top end, but the Porsche does have the acceleration because the Porsche is it's a flat 6 and it's pushing all those out. The Ferrari's got twin turbos. Does the Porsche and ACC have turbos, or is it naturally aspirated?
No, I'm pretty sure it's naturally aspirated.
That means
it's got
just off the line.
A lot of torque, a lot of bottom end power in that car. But you see, it's not even just under power, and Sean Muller loves to talk about this as the Porsche brakes. Absolute monster under braking that car, and it shows right here. He keeps catching Barker in the braking zones just because that's one of the places where that car is extremely strong. But Barker just pulling away into high speed stuff. So the Ferrari has, just to say, insanely broken TC. Having driven that car in the past, you can pretty much mash the throttle and that rear end will not spin around. It's got insanely good TC, and it's got a very odd driving style. Like, if you don't adapt to other cars very well, ends up giving you a very bad driving habit of mashing down on the throttle. And in cars such as the Porsche, such as the Ford, if you're using low TC in the Ford, because the Ford TC is extremely aggressive, you use TC7, TC6, it just bogs you down and you lose like a second of pace out of corners. Ferrari TC, you use high TC, but it just doesn't seem to be as aggressive as the 4TC. But it just seems to keep this car very stable around corners and on exits. You can really mash that throttle, and you just don't seem to lose time in that car. But yeah, like I said, it just gives you a very odd driving style where mashing the throttle is pretty much encouraged in that car, and when you try to transfer that to another car, it doesn't really work, as we see the Honda of Oliver hitting the sand. And now back on board with Glory Babby. In fact, Glory Babby's already managed to pull over a second and a half on Giacomin, so Glory Babby definitely did have the pace there, and he's showing it by already pulling over a second from Giacomin. And as they're currently on their last lap, going through the Schumacher S's for these two, as now the Honda's going for that last lap. But yeah, you can see Giacomin is
there's a
way
clear
back
gap
there now.
It was a very, very good drive from Giacomin in the first 90% of the race, because not only was he having to drive fast, but he was also having to defend against Glory. But Glory just kept clawing, kept pushing, kept prodding, kept fighting for that position, that chance to just send it and keep it there, because sending it is only half the battle. On the curves, on the
very dominant season so far for Glory Babby. He's basically won every split green races so far, and he's just adding another one to the tally. And as he wins the Nurburgring, round 3 Nurburgring of season 22 of the Thermaltake OR Sprint Series. Apologies.
So many words.
So many words. I'd expect I'd be good with the words when I'm commentating, but sometimes I get lost in my own head. But Glory Babby gets another win for split green. Giacomin will have to settle for P2, and Mags will get P3, and that's one of the better results for Mags. We've seen him in the past. He's not had the best results. He's got involved in some incidents, but he does manage to finish on the podium for this race, and I think he'll be happy with a P3, especially with the caliber of drivers he has to fight against. So he will be best of the rest. Well, Giacomin's technically best of the rest, but I'm gonna give it to Mags, as Glory Babby and Giacomin were basically side by side for the majority of this race. Again, the rest of the drivers going around the line, and there's still drivers on the back straight. Get another driver. I think that's the Porsche of Turret Bank. Will finish, I want to say P15, but he does have a 15-second penalty, so that's going to put him down the order. By how many spots, I'm not sure, but that's probably one to forget so far for Turret Bank. We've seen him in the past, where the past few races actually, where he's actually done fantastic results in the top 10 in his first race at Silverstone in the Sprint Series. So fantastic driver, and that's another one of those humble drivers. His son drives in the Academy Series. I imagine he's another Danny Wu. I can imagine he manages his son's racing, teaches his son how to drive. It's absolutely adorable stuff. Absolutely adorable stuff. We've got a nice community here at Octane Online Racing. But anyways, this was Split Green, as we now get the race results. For the overall, for our top 10, will be Glory Babby will take P1, followed by Luca Giacomin in P2. J-Mags will take the final podium position, followed by the overall Barker will take P5, Turcolini Barker P4, Turcolini P5, Mateen in P6, Godfrey will take P7, Hislop will be P8, Rad P9, and Danny Wu will close out our top 10. In silver class will be John Hislop will take the first place position, followed by Danny Wu and Busk in P3. For our Pro-Am drivers, it'll be Mateen in P1, followed by Brock Godfrey in P2, followed by J-Rad in P3. Rad! And for our Am drivers, Noah Reinhardt will take the win, followed by Izol in P2 and Zame in P3. Whew! That was a lot of talking, but this was a fun race. I enjoyed it.
There was plenty of action. We got to see the Sisyphean task of Glory Babby just trying to get to Giacomin. I just wanted to ask, who's your driver of the day?
My driver of the day will honestly have to be probably Glory Babby. being so patient and then making that move onto Giacomin was a fantastic overtake from him.
Yeah, I'd have to say, since you chose Babby, I'm gonna have to go with Giacomin because of the first initial T1 lap 1 overtake and then managing to defend for so long, because these are two very, very skilled drivers. As you can see, just the battle, just the back and forth was just amazing to watch over the course of the race.
It was a fantastic race, but unfortunately for today, this will be it. This was Octane Online Racing Thermaltake Sprint Series Round 3 at the Nurburgring over for today. However, there is more to come tomorrow as we have our Cup cars and our Split Red coming up tomorrow. So stick around for tomorrow. But for today, my name was Tim Gobe, commentating with John Gormley with Benjamin Hignett on cameras. This was Octane Online Racing.
Thank you, everybody.